Thank you to our channel sponsors, Jet.Build. If you're looking for ways to better manage your real estate development and construction projects, look no further. Jet is the command center software for end-to-end real estate development and construction management. That's www.jet.build. Yeah, thank you for being here. It's really an honor to have you on the show. I look to you and those of similar rank, or really any veteran, as celebrities in my eyes. So, it's really an honor to have you here, and appreciate you taking the time. Where are you calling in from? Where's home base for you?
Right now, it's Columbia, South Carolina. And probably my forever home is my daughter's at Clemson, which is a celebrity. So, I think that's kind of funny, in my opinion. I'm sure you're going to read a bio. My bio sounds a lot better than it actually was going through it. But no matter what rank we ever get to, my wife this morning, after I came back from the gym, I got out of the shower, I was getting ready, and she said our family, kind of our family thing about being ready for something. It's very simple. It's good luck, don't suck. We've said this to every kid as they walked out to the plate, on the shooting field, the baseball field, whatever it was. I turned to her and I said, I really don't need luck today. He can't hire me and he can't fire me. It is what it is. She looked me dead in the eyes and she said, then please just don't embarrass me. It doesn't matter what rank you get to, there's always somebody that's got you in check. That's
true. I appreciate the humility. Nonetheless, I stand by my statement. You are a celebrity to me, and I think a lot of people would agree with that. So, thank you for your storied service, and I'm excited to kick things off. So I'll start off with your formal introduction. So bear with me. I'm going to take a deep breath here. Charles Masaracchia, aka Maz, served for 30 years of active military service in the Army, where he retired as a Brigadier General. Maz deployed 9 times in support of military operations in both Iraq and Afghanistan. His combat deployments include captain rank as a Ranger Company Commander in Afghanistan and Iraq, Major and Lieutenant Colonel in the 82nd Airborne Division, from Battalion Operations Officer to Battalion Commander in Iraq and Afghanistan, Colonel in the 1st Infantry Division as the Division Chief of Staff in Iraq, and Brigadier General in the 3 Security Force Assistance Brigade and Commander in Afghanistan Today, Maz is the Director of Operations for Boyer Commercial Construction and also serves as an Army Senior Mentor for the Mission Command Training Center and is the owner of a consulting and training company. Maz is an avid hunter, rifle, pistol, and shotgun shooter, competing in skeet, trap, and sporting clays. Most importantly, Maz has been married for 30 years to his wife, Kim. They have 3 children and 2 dogs, Corey, a captain in the Army, Matthew, and Allie, who shoots competitively for Clemson University. Molly is their black lab and duck hunter, and Hutch is their German short-haired pointer and upland game bird hunter. Maz is passionate about training his dogs, which he does every day after his daily workout. Maz, before we kick off, I want to say congrats for 30 years of marriage. That's amazing accomplishment, and your family. Any quick recommendations for marriage?
So it's funny you say that, and actually I do. And I tell most people this, that I've counseled in the past, and when I do talk to large groups now, it hasn't always been great. My wife and I separated when I was a captain in the Army because, and I quote, you love your soldiers, your boys, more than you love this, our family and being home. So we went to do some counseling, and I'll tell you, I don't like counseling. I don't like psychologists. This really doesn't fit well with me. But I did take 3 things away, and it's what I tell everybody. Number 1, don't ever call home before you're actually in your vehicle with it in drive to tell them that you're on the way home. Because inevitably the phone's going to ring, an email's going to come in, or someone's going to need something from you and walk in your office. Number 2, don't ever walk in the house on the phone with work-related issues. My wife now knows when I'm sitting in the driveway, lights are on. If I'm not immediately coming in, I'm finishing something from work. And then 3, I try never to work from home. I get up very early, or I did get up very early when I was in the military, and I got in because the family was sleeping, and it didn't distract anything from them. I didn't always make it home for dinner. Most of the time I didn't make it home for dinner. But they knew when I walked through the door, I wasn't getting a laptop out. I wasn't going to be trying to have phone calls. I was back home, and I was dad instead of whatever rank I was.
That's amazing advice. And, military or not, I think that's applicable really to everyone. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. Awesome. So we want to do a life story. So let's kick off with childhood, where you grew up and what in your childhood led you to service.
I was born into a military family. My dad was enlisted. We were stationed in Japan at the time. I was born extremely premature, ended up staying there for about 6 or 7 months after I was born before we moved back to the States. Moved around the United States for quite a while. About when I was 7, we went overseas. My mom was a Department of Defense civilian at that point in time, along with my dad being in the military still. Came back to the States when I was about 12 or 13. Moved around a little bit there. And then my dad took his final assignment in Korea as a sergeant major. My mom was the Deputy Garrison Commander at Camp Zama, Japan again, back in Japan again. He retired. My mom became the sponsor. I went to Norwich University, which I'll come back to why I ended up there. And then they kind of finished up in Germany 6, 7 years. Came back. She was the Deputy Garrison Commander at Carlisle University, United States Army War College, and then retired from out of that position. Back to why I ended up at Norwich. It's kind of a funny story. I had a couple of recruiting offers while I was overseas. I played baseball, football, and wrestled. Came back on a recruiting trip. Wanted to play football somewhere. Went to 3 different universities, all Division I, to look at them. I go to the University of West Virginia, my second stop, and they wanted to show you how important you were, or that they were really trying to recruit you, and they had your name on the depth chart already. I thought they'd think I would be impressed by 11th on the depth chart. I asked them, when do you see me playing? And the response was, we see you dressing for home games as a junior. I was like, hold on now, that means I'm going to be on the scrub team or the practice team, just getting crushed every week for 3 years. And might be for 4, who knows. At that point in time, we're getting ready to wrestle in the All-Far East tournament in Japan. The U.S. team was passing through Japan. The U.S. wrestling team was passing through Japan, headed to Korea for the Olympics. And just so happens, an alternate on that team ended up being the Norwich wrestling coach who reached out to me. So that opened my eyes to Norwich University, which is in Vermont. And that's kind of how the Norwich thing happened. My plan initially was to enlist in the Army, make E5, E6, and then go green to gold. My dad had nothing to do with that plan. Basically, I was coming off the Masaracchia welfare program, if that was the plan that I decided to execute. So I decided I probably didn't want to exit that plan that had been so good to me up to that point in time. And I went to Norwich, and going to a Division III school, you can pretty much play any sport that you can walk on and make. So I walked on to football and made it. I got a scholarship to wrestle, but then I walked on and played baseball.
That's awesome. You know, in hindsight, in your experience through childhood, moving around so much, what's your kind of thought on that in terms of, I'm sure it was hard to create, friend groups because you bounce around, or maybe it wasn't for you. Like, what was that like?
I will tell you, being an athlete made it a heck of a lot easier to create that new peer group when we moved. So that made it easy for me. I would tell you a little bit differently now as I saw my children grow up in the military. My oldest son, who's a captain in the Army, a senior captain in the Army now, his first initial moves in the military, we didn't have cell phones or Facebook and Snapchat or whatever they're using today. As I watched my second son and my daughter grow up through all of these social media platforms, they already had friends waiting on the other side that they knew at 2 assignments ago and had been staying in touch with. So I will tell you, the one thing I will say about growing up as a military brat, you're resilient. You pick up and move when the United States Army says it's time to move someplace. And you build a network when you get there. And I will tell you, my daughter going to college, the most recent one, has been a great example of that. Her ability to pick up and move and assimilate and build a network and a friend group is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well said. I can see that. In that process of growing up, given that you're a military family, at what point did you decide that you were going to enlist?
I'll tell you, I always knew I wanted to be in the military. When you grow up in a military household, you live on military bases. I will tell you, maybe for a lack of experience on the outside. It's just always what I wanted to do. I saw my dad leading soldiers. I saw that team that he built. I saw the camaraderie, and I didn't think there was anything else that I'd want to do besides that. Now, the enlisting part, my dad was probably right. His concern was that if I enlisted in the Army and I served X number of years, that I would probably fall in love with it and I'd never go back to school. And he is probably absolutely correct about that.
Is it not the case? I could be totally off. I'm saying this as a question. Is it not the case that ranking officers, high-ranking officers, have opportunity for schooling?
For schooling, are you talking about professional military education, military schooling, or?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, fair question. Yeah, I wasn't sure. I was asking that pretty broadly. Military schooling or external, I'll call it. Traditional schooling.
I think as you're growing up in the military, and as times have actually changed in my last half of my career, the military or the Department of Defense has put a lot more emphasis on our education. There's always been the standard, the basic course for a lieutenant, the captain's career course for the captains, Command and General Staff College for the major, the War College as a colonel. But I will tell you, over the course of probably the last 5 to 7 years, the military has put a lot of emphasis on master's degrees, on PhDs, and getting our soldiers, our senior leaders out there to assimilate with the civilian population, to kind of demonstrate that we're not that different from you. We might do things differently, but we're not that different, especially since we went to our closed military installations where you just didn't get to come on and see the average soldier what was going on behind the fence.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was alluding to, what I thought, but I wasn't totally sure. Yeah, that's really interesting. All right, so you're 18, I think, and you start university, I guess. At what point do you begin your enlistment process?
Well, I went to a military college. It's the oldest private military college in the United States in Norwich, 1819, out of Vermont. I knew going in I was going to come out on the backside as an officer, getting commissioned if everything went well. I enlisted in my sophomore year because I saw an opportunity. If the military was going to be my end state, my goal, then I wanted to do everything possible that I could on the front side of it to ensure success and have no regrets about an opportunity that I didn't take advantage of. So it was my beginning of my sophomore year that I enlisted. I had to take the closest armory, the closest guard unit to the school because of my obligations at a military school and then playing 3 different sports. I was in an MP unit, and I was at that point in time, I was on a Willis Jeep as an M60 gunner, which was a lot of fun.
I'm sure. Yeah, it sounds like it. Well, what was, familiar more so with Naval Academy or West Point? Is it a similar kind of degree or school process in Norwich?
It is. It doesn't take the nominations or anything else like that to enter, because I definitely didn't have them. But after you're in it, it's absolutely like one of the service academies in which we lived in barracks. We had barracks room inspections. We did formations 3 times a day. We marched to our meals as freshmen until we were recognized. We had certain times that we could be out of the barracks, certain times that we had to be in. We had a lights out period. We had to maintain our academics and our physical status while we were there. So relatively close. I don't want to compare it to a service academy since I didn't go to an academy, but having served 30 years and having a lot of friends that did, it's pretty similar.
Right. Yeah. The broad structure seems similar. Yeah. So in your recollection of your degree, anything stand out, whether it be summer opportunities or that kind of enlistment starting military process?
I had a couple phenomenal opportunities. Serving in the guard unit, there was a couple like we're going through now, natural disasters that happened in the state of Vermont that we're activated for. So I got to do some good training there. Additionally, the summer before my senior year, you do I did CTLT, Cadet Leadership Training. Just so happens I pulled Europe, so I was in country with my family and was only about an hour and a half away from them. So that was a great summer of going through that. I was able to go to airborne school as a cadet. And then just the local training that the school did with us in the state of Vermont.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, hearing about that school process in one of the academies and what you just described, I mean, I think it sounds great. You know, I'm sure in the moment, there's a lot of, you know, hardships in comparison to what, you know, typical colleges, typical university is. Nonetheless, I think the takeaways from it and, you know, your memories of it are just awesome.
It was. I'll tell you, it was a rough first year, as any of the military schools are. Then after that, eases back a little bit. But I will tell you, looking back on it, hindsight, had I gone to a normal civilian university, I probably wouldn't be sitting here today having this conversation, because I'm not sure I had the discipline at that point in time to do what was required of me.
You know, what's interesting is I'm pretty sure, at least veterans that I've spoken to, and speaking of my own experience, I did university after my service, and going to university after service was brutal in its own right. So hearing, you know, your process going first, or kind of, you know, meshing it in your university process, your undergrad process, I mean, it just sounds right. It just sounds like the right way to do it. So that's really cool. And what?
Yeah, go ahead. If I can just add one thing on that.
Please.
Had I had military service prior to going to school, and I learned a work ethic bar none growing up in the military. As a matter of fact, I did not go to the Army's War College at Carlisle, Pennsylvania. I did a fellowship where I went to Duke and UNC underneath the Special Operations Command Fellowship. And man, had I had that work ethic when I was in school, I'd have graduated with a 4.0. Because they said something was due, I started on it that night. I didn't procrastinate on it. You know, I went with 4 other individuals, and we made an agreement up front. We would have a standard duty day. We were coming out of Fort Bragg, so it was about a 45-minute drive. When we came out of classes, we went to the library, and we worked on either a thesis or what we had to do in preparation for class, and a lot of times they had us teaching some of the classes. And then we left at about 4:30 to get home at about 5:30, which is still an early day at that point in time for a colonel in the Army. So I'll tell you, for me, going back to school that late and having gone through, at that point, 20 plus years of military, I thought school was a piece of cake.
Sure.
But funny, 18 to 22, I'll be honest, I struggled. I mean, it was hard.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, all of what you just said tracks. When you went as a colonel, what was that for? What was that degree for?
That was for, international studies through the Triangle Institute of Security Studies. And we went through, basically half my classes were on Duke, half my classes were at UNC. And that was the equivalent of the Army War College for a colonel in preparation for Brigade Commander.
Interesting. And were you with like civilian students?
All of our classes were with civilian students, right, except for the 4 of us that were accepted into this fellowship, and we went up there. And we weren't in classes all the time together. There were certain classes we had to take to meet our obligation, and then the other ones were classes that we had to apply to get into.
Okay, so while we're on this topic, might as well just dive in one more question here, and then we'll come back to, you know, chronological of your military service in general. But in this program, you know, being with other civilians, how was that in terms of, I don't know, interaction, if you really had any, or if you were preoccupied anyways, you know, being that you were mid-service, mid-career?
Well, we were the old guys in any class we walked into, obviously. Right. At that point in time, 20 years of service, I guess I was close to 40 years old. There wasn't another 40-year-old in any of my classes while we were there. The interaction was always interesting. We wanted to see and interact with them. They were hesitant because of our military experience. That everyone knew what we had done. We were coming out of this fellowship program. The war had been going on for a while at that point. The course load that they had us in obviously was related to strategic studies. So we did a lot of work with the terrorism classes, the leadership classes. A lot of the Duke individuals were on the path to becoming analysts for the Department of Defense. So the class that we were put in with them, we were basically their mentors as they were getting prepared to exit the civilian lifestyle, civilian style of briefing, and get them more prepared for a standard military type of briefing, and kind of boiling something down to the facts that need to be brought up in the meeting for a decision to be made. That was probably the most interesting thing that we did while we were there. And then along with the leadership department was also very interesting.
Yeah, that is really interesting. I can see where that puts you in a, I don't know, relatively good place, considering the course load would be one of which the students should look up to you. If they're not looking up to you, I think they're in the wrong class. Yeah, interesting.
The terrorism class was obviously the most interesting for us, as we're listening to a professor talk about terrorism after all of us had been probably on our 7th or 8th deployment.
Sure.
At a rank that we understood strategically, politically, kind of what was taking place around the world, as they talked about terrorist ideology. And we had real world experience with what a terrorist end states are, what they're trying to accomplish, what means they're willing to go through to achieve their objectives. It didn't take long for the professor to realize that he had 4 guys sitting in his class. We ended up taking over every week. One of us was teaching a portion of his class for him. And I'd say that was actually very interesting for us also. We enjoyed that interaction. It kind of took them away from the standard university style education to an interactive kind of education, with not reading out a book, but asking us questions. So our thought process is, how did we deny him achieving his objectives while the government has their end state and their objectives also?
Right. Yeah, that's super interesting. And I'm glad you said that, because I was about to ask, did they give you the opportunity to speak, right? To talk about your experience to whatever extent you could. Then I was also going to ask, outside of that, university experience, were you ever asked to come back and, I don't know, speak or run a session?
I have been asked. I was asked while I was still stationed at Fort Bragg to go back up and do some speeches and some learning experience drills with the leadership department.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm really happy to hear that. And I think it's crucial, right, to learn from veterans who literally live that life, and push new lessons learned, et cetera. That's awesome. So taking now a step back, going back to your undergrad experience, at what point did you realize, I guess, your trajectory, what was going to happen after undergrad?
Again, I knew I went there because it was military school. It was going to be my fastest means to be commissioned and go into the active duty regular Army. So go through the 4 years, you're competing most of the time, because we have to compete for grade point average, how you score on your physical aptitude test, how you do at advanced camp. All of those get rolled up, and that's how they rank order you for your choice of branches. Did very well, got my first choice, got infantry. So I spent the first 26 years of my service as an infantry officer. Coming out of there, I think I had a pretty good idea of expectations. I mean, I was a leg ahead of most because I grew up in a military family. I learned a lot of discipline at Norwich, especially playing 3 sports. I basically had enough credits to graduate in December, which was my plan. I did my student teaching from December until April, so I graduated with a teacher's license just in case something did not go as planned. I had something that was tangible that I could fall back on. And then I immediately left Norwich, going down to Fort Benning, Georgia, to start my career as a second lieutenant at the basic course.
How did you know to do that teaching course, to have a fallback?
I'm sorry, say it one more time.
How did you know to run through that teaching course to have that certificate as a fallback?
I was a PE major with a minor in biology. Again, I grew up in a military family on military bases. I saw people get hurt quite a bit. Heard my dad talk about stories about soldiers and officers that he had that were being medically discharged, medically retired, getting out because their body just couldn't withstand the punishment. I've always been one of those guys that want to play it safe, that always want to keep an ace in my back pocket. And I just wanted to know that I wasn't going to be out there searching for something if something did go wrong for me.
Yeah. So I asked that question because I find that's been the best advice I've heard from all the veterans who have been on the show and that I've spoken to, is kind of preparing options for when you finish, or if something happens when you finish service that you can fall back on, so you're not left, questioning who you are and what to do. You have something, you have a purpose you could pursue, worst case scenario. So it's really interesting that, especially in that point in time, that you already figured, to sort yourself out in that capacity. That's awesome.
Again, having a leg up, having grown up in the military, you're only one bad decision away from finding a new line of work.
Sure.
And you never know when that's going to take place. So I wanted to have something as a fallback just in case. Would I have gone into teaching? I don't know. But it was something that would carry me through, that I wasn't going to be searching and having to stress about something to do.
Right. Yep. It was there. So you get to your first unit. What happens next?
My first unit, I ended up going to Hawaii. Again, I did extremely well. So I got my first choice, which was infantry. I also got my first choice of assignment, which was Hawaii. I spent 2 years there. It's a phenomenal training. But I knew I had an end state of what I wanted to do as an infantry officer. I wanted to go to the Ranger Regiment. I wanted to serve with the best soldiers, NCOs, leadership, be the best trained I possibly could for the future of whatever my career entailed. So I went to assessment selection at Fort Benning, Georgia, now Fort Moore. I made it through that, made it through my board, got selected, and I went to 1st Ranger Battalion down in Savannah, Georgia. I spent about 2.5 years down there, and I'll tell you what a phenomenal experience. Coming out of Norwich, I thought I was pretty prepared, but coming out of 1st Ranger Battalion, I knew I was prepared for the next step of my career.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. What can you talk about in terms of selection, what it was like for you, just thoughts, generally speaking, of how that process went?
It's a pretty grueling process. A lot of it's physical. You take aptitude tests, you take an IQ test, they run you through the ringers with the psychologist. Everything you do is watched, whether you know it or not. He's formulating his opinion of how you answer the question, because we all know what the right answer is when you're talking to a psychologist or you're answering the litany of forms that you answer. We kind of know at that point in time what the Army's looking for. What he's looking for is to see if there's any abnormalities between how you answered and then how you act when you're interacting during exercises and drills. That's what gives them some doubt about how you answered. So that was interesting. And then the board is always extremely tough. They want to see how you react under stress, under pressure, time constraints, multiple questions being asked. Someone on the board is probably the bad guy on the board. He's going to try and get underneath your skin and then see how you can recover. Control yourself, contain yourself, compose yourself to follow on with the rest of the questions of the board.
For any listener that's aspiring to get into the Ranger Regiment, what would you recommend they do to prepare themselves?
Number one, make up your mind that is a goal and that you will accomplish your goals. Number two, it's a hard selection. The selection process of just getting invited to the assessment selection is difficult. You've got to have a very good file. You've got to have letters of recommendation. It goes before the initial board before you ever even know about it to determine who's going to be invited to, lack of better terms, tryout. So my best advice is do the absolute best you can going through your career. Always remember that people are watching and that how you treat others, specifically subordinates and your soldiers, will count because they will reach out to people and ask about you.
Yeah, well said. I really appreciate that first pointer that you said, which I call intention setting, right? Set your intention in advance and be really strict with it. And that's a good way. It's a good formula to get through. So you finish. Go ahead,
board. I've got goals in my office. I've always kind of been a goal-oriented individual. I need to know what I'm looking at, what I'm looking for, and I set my plan to how to get there and how to achieve it.
Awesome. So you're in Atlanta. You get through to Ranger Regiment. What happens from there?
I spent 2 years there. The war wasn't going on. A lot of training, a lot of overseas deployments, as in training deployments. Incredible training, incredible NCOs, incredible soldiers. Probably one of the few places that I served, maybe the only place that I served, and I did have an opportunity to go back. So I did have 2 different assignments there, where everyone that is there desires to be there and is willing to do whatever it takes to maintain that position and that status of being in the unit. So it really is an easy place to excel once you're there. Now, it is highly competitive when you're there because everybody is in that same top tier, your peer group, which you won't see anywhere else in your service career. So I will tell you, a lot of work, a lot of stress. Probably one of the more rewardable things I've done throughout my career was serving that organization with the quality of the individual that's there.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I'm hearing really is your peer group is motivating one another, and vice versa, right? It's a motivational environment.
Yes. I mean, the beauty of the organization is violate a standard and a soldier violates the standard of the organization. When I was there, before we went to bed that night, he was serving in a different division. Gone. Officer makes an egregious error in judgment. He's going to be leaving the organization pretty soon, very quickly. So it is stressful, but it pushes you. And I think that stress of being challenged, both mentally and physically, every single day is good for you.
Agreed. Yep. Agreed. Well said. So you're there for, I think you said that 2 years?
2 years, and then I went to Fort Benning, Georgia, to do the officer advanced course. Graduated the advanced course, and I went to Fort Campbell, Kentucky, where I commanded my first company. Spent 2 years there in command. Again, a lot of training, a lot of preparing for the unknown. I decided that after I finished command, I wanted to go back to the Ranger Regiment. I wanted another opportunity to do that. So I went back through the assessment selection process. I made it. The board decided, or I was actually hired by 1st Ranger Battalion at that point in time again. So I went back to Savannah, and that is about the time that the war kicked off. Then the deployment started.
So you said something like a half a step back. So something that I guess I wasn't aware of. If you left the Ranger Regiment for, I mean, in your circumstance, this was an officer dynamic, right? And if you come back, then you have to go through the selection process again.
Yes, they're now looking at you as a command billet. So they're looking for a lot of different qualities than they were looking at you when you were coming through as a lieutenant. They're looking at you as a primary staff officer, and then every day is a competition. They like to say selection's an ongoing process. You've got to outperform your peers to be selected to command a company. So I went there. I served about a year on staff, about 7 months on staff when it was determined that I would command a company.
Yeah, wow, interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that. How was going through selection process the second time?
Probably more stressful than the first one. If you knew what the prize was at the end of this, how great this would potentially, what's definitively going to be, because you've already experienced it. More stressful in the sense that, once you commit to going to assessment and selection, if they don't select you, you're going on worldwide assignment. So at this point in time, I had a wife and a child. As a matter of fact, I had a wife. My second son was just born as we were going there. So I sent them back to her home as I went through it, on the event that if I didn't make it, there was no reason for her to come or leave Fort Campbell or going back to Savannah or wherever they decided to send me. So pretty stressful, because you have an opportunity to compete for different assignments. You forego all of that to go down there and compete. And if it doesn't happen, the really desirable positions probably aren't still available because you're late in your timeline for making that decision. So I would tell you, pretty stressful. Then you're put in a lot more leadership positions while you're there, because you're you're a captain, you've already commanded a company. So that's a little bit stressful too while you're there. You kind of, if you've been there before, you kind of know how this process works, that you're always being observed, and that the board's going to be pretty grueling.
Yeah, so on personal side, certainly a lot of pressure, as you pointed out. On the professional military side, are you given more kind of responsibility given you have rank at that point versus, coming in as I guess you actually did come in as an officer to begin with, right?
Yes. I mean, it's, everything in the Ranger Regiment, besides the regimental commander, is a second-time position for an officer. So to be brought in as a lieutenant, you have to have served successfully as a lieutenant. As a captain, if you're going in to be a company commander, you must have served successfully in a command billet. So yeah, you're relatively seasoned. It's strictly run by a cadre of NCOs and an officer that is very good at what they do and incredibly professional. From that standpoint, I would say it's kind of a gentleman's course, that there's no hazing. They're not looking to run you out. There is a standard that you must meet. You must run 5 miles in under 40 minutes. You must road march 12 miles with a rucksack that weighs an X number of pounds in under 3 hours.
Yeah, and
I knew before you went there. If you trained for it, then it shouldn't be that difficult. But the added stress of it all coming together at one time is pretty difficult to get through.
Totally. Yeah, totally. I'd argue the gentleman's course kind of atmosphere is actually harder than the hazing atmosphere, because you understand how you need to perform and you understand that you need to get there, and you don't have kind of the simple mindset, I'll call it, right? The hazing scenario, it's you could have a simple mindset and just trudge through it. In your circumstance, you really can't.
And when I say a gentleman's course, what I mean by that is that we had the POI, we had the daily schedule. No one was throwing garbage cans down the hallway like when I was a freshman at Norwich to wake you up. The expectation was you were professional enough to be standing in formation in the right uniform at the right time with the right attitude to start the day. You were dismissed at a certain time, and the expectation was you were going back to your room to study and prepare for the next day. They weren't messing with you during the night.
Yeah. Yeah, I find that kind of dynamic to add a layer of kind of, it's responsibility, right? You have an added layer of kind of psychology, right? Where you understand, in addition to the, performance that you have to do, which is also psychological and physical, you have the psychology of like administrative, baseline that you have to maintain on top of all that. So yeah, I can see that as weighing on the process for sure. Cool. So you get through, what happens next?
I get through, I get selected, I go to 1st Ranger Battalion, bring the family down. I spend 6-7 months on staff, take command, and that's about the time that the war kicked off.
When you say that, I think that means 9/11, correct?
9/11. As a matter of fact, we were doing a rehearsal mission overseas when the terrorist attack actually took place. We were stuck in Europe at the time. We came back through Europe. We staged there thinking we might get employed immediately. And when that didn't happen, they brought us back to the States, where we began our preparation, our rehearsals, and everything else for eventual deployment. Can
you talk about that literal day? What was happening? What was the atmosphere like? How'd you find out?
Actually, it's pretty funny. It's kind of interesting. We've been in basically isolation, doing planning for the rehearsal mission that we were over there to train for. After 3 days of continuous planning preparation, we get on the aircraft. We get into the country that we were going to, and somebody gets on the aircraft and they announce that the United States is under attack. There's multiple aircraft in the air. We don't know what we're doing. We thought it was a change of mission just to stress us. It probably was 30 to 40 minutes before we realized we weren't being messed with. They weren't putting us back through a planning cycle, that this had really just happened. At that point in time, some of the other agencies and elements that we were with immediately starting to get rid of our simunitions, their training weapons, and starting to open containers to get live ammunition out, because we were protecting bases, protecting the force. Be careful where I go with this. again, we thought we might be employed immediately coming out of Europe for a direct employment. That was not the decision that was made. It was to bring us back to the States. We spent probably 3 or 4 days there because we had a aircraft malfunction where our equipment couldn't get out with us. So we were waiting there for the C-5 to come back up and get fixed. All the time, we're trying to figure out, and again, this is before cell phones, finding out what's going on with our families, how is everything going on back in the States. We had people that had family members that were in the Twin Towers that were hit, that were overseas with us. A lot of guys in the Pentagon. We all knew people that were in the Pentagon at the time. We wanted to get out of Europe back to the States and truly get employed as fast as possible.
Yeah, that's a crazy situation to be in, given what was happening in the U.S. Right when you said, someone got up on the plane and said, we're under attack. I mean, the first thing that came to my mind if I was in your position is, right. Here, okay, here's another training session, right? Like, there's no way you're going to believe that up front. That's
72 hours on and off planning this thing as Intel came in and continued to make us change plans. This, again, a training opportunity, putting us under stress to come up with the best plan that we possibly could to achieve our objective on that mission, and then gets on the plane and we think we've got to go back through another 72 hours of planning. And again, we get off the aircraft and we start hearing grumblings and people talking about it, and we realized, oh shit, this really happened. This is going down right now. There was, I think, 17 different aircraft that were squawking emergency beacons at the time, us not knowing, or anybody knowing where they were going to. Obviously, what we found out in the end was some of them were erratic, that weren't actually hijacked. And at that point in time, I still think there was 2 or 3 in the air that eventually did go in.
Yeah, wow, that's wild. So when you land back in the U.S. after that whole process, what's the time frame between being home or being on base to deploying?
The first company that actually went was not my company. They went in initially. We had a rotation at the Joint Readiness Training Center for the Ranger Regiment. We went down there and executed that. That's when the Rangers took their first serious casualties in country. Commander went forward with that company and basically told us that he's doing everything he can to get the rest of the organization in. So we finished the rotation. We get back to Hunter Army Airfield, and it was not long after that we were being deployed.
Interesting. Being in this point of your career and timeline of just history, can you say that you felt, I'm trying to think how to kind of word this, can you say that you felt a difference in like general morale or attitude pre 9/11, the 9/11 moment plus minus a few years, and then kind of well after?
Hard for me to describe that because I'd been in regular Army units, then I'd served twice in the Ranger Regiment. Again, like I said, everybody that's there wanted to be there, was doing everything in their power to remain there, and was competing every day. But I can tell you that when we get back to the States, we went to JRTC, that one company went forward feeling of just devastation. It's what we'd been training for. We wanted to be there with everybody else. Then we got the notification that they'd taken serious casualties. It was defeating. We were missing out on something that was probably going to take us 6 months to defeat. I mean, it's Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. This isn't going to take us long. We're going to miss this thing, and we've lost brothers already, and we're not even going to be able to ever get into the fight.
Yeah.
Be careful what you ask for.
Right. Right. So once you finish that training rotation, is that when you then deploy?
Yes. Well, it was probably a couple months after that. The rest of the organization goes in.
Right, and I'm sure, like you just said, right, in those months, you're thinking, "Oh wow, we're gonna miss the opportunity," as did really everybody. Thinking, "Oh, okay, this is gonna end some point soon." So I'm sure that was a wild kind of experience.
So we go into Afghanistan. we're in the northeastern corner of the country, up in the mountains, staged there for the execution of high-value targets. Was there for about 5 or 6 months. Iraq gets serious at that point in time. We go back to the States and we start doing rehearsals for the execution to seize Baghdad International Airport from a airborne operation. Time period of that, I think, was only a couple months. We were back there. We were doing multiple different airfield seizures and rehearsing how we would execute this. We go into country. We're staged in a neighboring country, very, very close, conducting operations on the border, preparing to execute the airborne operation that we had done, doing static loads on aircraft with combat equipment, making sure that we could get everybody in, making sure we understand how full that bird was actually going to be. They were checking to make sure the aircraft could fly the right flight pattern. And that's when the 407 was attacked in the ambush in Masaracchia, killing quite a few, and Jessica Lynch becoming a prisoner of war. We got activated and moved down there and staged for the execution of that operation. Executed that 2 days after we'd been on the ground.
Wow.
Came back off of that one, and at that point in time, I was detached from 1st Ranger Battalion, attached to 2nd Ranger Battalion, doing personality targeting out of Baghdad. Spent the rest of that rotation in and around Baghdad. Came back from that rotation, and then within a month and a half, well, less than a month, I was going to Fort Leavenworth for the Command and General Staff College as a major.
Wow, yeah. So broadly, how long was that period of deployment?
About 5 months.
5 months, okay.
Again, on the cycles that we're on, and understanding that Afghanistan didn't just end overnight like we probably thought it would. Iraq could go on for an extended period of time. The training and the certification process for each of the battalions is pretty lengthy. So they needed to get a rotation in which they didn't have all of us 4 deployed, so we could continue to go through our training and certification rotations and keep somebody in the ready to execute. So we came out first and then started that rotation, and that's when I was sent to the Command and General Staff College.
Were they adopting the training rotation curriculum, I'll call it, as kind of the war continued?
Absolutely. I'll tell you, the Special Operations Forces, probably because it is a small, we'll just call it a small ship. You can turn a small ship on a dime.
Yeah.
Big Army has a little bit harder with that, and I've deployed with both from Special Operations and from Conventional Forces. We were adopting enemies' TTPs, tactics, techniques, and procedures immediately upon getting back to the States, and everything that we trained in preparation for either Afghanistan or going back into Iraq.
Yeah, I mean, not unique, or for lack of a better word, to the military. I mean, that's the same circumstance with any huge organization versus a smaller one. You would like to hope the smaller organizations are more nimble and able to adjust and adapt. So yeah, that makes sense. So it sounds like where we just got to in your career is the school process again, which is what we were talking about earlier on in our conversation, correct?
Yes. So I go to the Command and General Staff College. I will tell you, this was probably the most humbling and the first time in my military career that I thought that I needed to get out of the service. I went back. I competed to go back to the Ranger Regiment as a major out of the Command and General Staff College, and it didn't work out this time for me. Served too much time, needed to go do other things before they wanted me to come back. I decided, okay, there was another organization out there, a Tier 1 force, that I wanted to try out for. I'd served in multiple different roles with them as we were deployed, and I wasn't selected. At this point in time, I just failed at the first 2 things I've truly failed at, big things in my military career. And I will tell you, thank God I was married to the woman that I'm still married to. Because had she left me to my own devices, I probably would have looked for another line of work at that point in time.
Sure, yeah. Being able to talk about that, first of all, is no simple task. So thank you for sharing that. In hindsight, again, on this kind of advice perspective for other veterans that are listening in, what kind of advice can you give for overcoming that kind of a circumstance?
Okay, first off, I learned probably the most important lesson I learned is you got to put your ego aside. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I was crushed. They told me no. I was probably just as concerned about what other people thought of me for not making it than I was about not making it. It didn't make me any less of a soldier. It didn't make me any less of a leader. As a matter of fact, it probably in the end made me a better leader and a better soldier for having that adversity when I had it in my career. Mm-hmm. So put your ego aside. Nobody is looking at you like you failed, because 99% of the people that are out there didn't enter the ring to compete. Mm-hmm. So
it's probably even more than 99%, right? It's probably real close to 100%. Yeah. Well said. That's very, very relatable. So, when we were talking about this, it was a master's program.
It's the Commander General Staff College. Now it does offer a master's degree coming out of it. Before it did not. You had to seek that out through other means while you were there.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, because what you're saying, it sounded like what I would think of now as master's. So this program that you went through, when we talked about it earlier in our conversation, I didn't know, right, because we hadn't gotten here yet, the timing of that. So, I mean, even more so, I'm surprised in a good way that, it wasn't an, extraordinarily difficult scenario to be in, given, you had just come back from some deployments, you're switching situations in career. I mean, all I can say is good for you for being able to get through that. I just see that and think of hardship. So, congrats. That's really amazing.
It was an interesting time period. The only people that had deployed and come back really were special operations forces. Mm-hmm. Because, again, like I said, whether it was special forces, other tiered units, or the Ranger Regiment, we knew that we had to be able to provide training-ready forces for the long haul. So we had to get a rotation going. So everybody in the regular Army that was in the Commander General Staff College with us had not deployed yet. Mm-hmm. We had just come back from 2 of them. So it was an interesting time period of who was in the courses, experiences, as we're going through some of these scenarios, and we're trying to lead with, I got it, that's what our doctrine says, but I think our doctrine is going to change here real soon from our experiences downrange.
It's like a critical inflection point. Yeah, totally. Really interesting. So where did we kind of leave off is, I guess, you're finishing with this degree and you're seeking out the next stage in your career, correct?
So again, you go through an interview process. You put down, you rank order where you'd like to go, and you do your interviews with them. Then they rank order you. In the end, they get more say than you do with your vote of where you want to go. I was told, since at that point in time I was strictly light, airborne, and Ranger, and I would be going to a mechanized assignment. So I was told that's what I had to do. So I rank ordered them how I thought for a location I'd like to be at, a unit I'd like to be in, and submitted it. And I was number 1 on a unit's list. I made them my number 1, trying to reinforce that. My wife had already applied for jobs. We were about to make an offer on a house there because I was told, you've got to do this type of an assignment. I was 1. I made them my 1. We were about to make an offer on a house when I found out that I was going to the 82nd Airborne Division, going back to another light assignment, which was absolutely shocking.
I'm sure. What was
the furthest West Coast military Army installation that we've got over to the East Coast again, and got prepared to go to an organization that had never served in the 82nd. I was going in as a field grade, about to be a operations officer or an executive officer.
Wow. Yeah, I think back to kind of what you talked about in terms of your childhood, moving around a bunch. That I'm sure that played some, core fundamental principle, whatever is the correct word there, support in that. I mean, that's a crazy shift.
It is. The only saving grace to it was a lot of guys come out of the 82nd and go to the Ranger Regiment. And again, you can't stay in the Ranger Regiment forever. You've got to come back out, fulfill your obligation, do that job, and then compete for that job in there. So there was a lot of guys that had gone there that I knew.
Awesome.
Senior guys on the division staff. So I did have a lifeline to reach out to. It was an airborne unit at that point in time. I'd already passed jump master school. So I was a relatively experienced paratrooper. So that piece wasn't bad. But there's a culture in the 82nd that if you don't know and you're an outsider coming in as a major, is pretty hard.
Sure. So yeah, so walk us through with that, what that's like.
So on my orders, I was supposed to go directly to a battalion and be an operations officer. Little did I know, as I'm traveling across the country to get to Fort Bragg, that somebody actually took a look at our officer record briefs and found out that I was junior to a couple of the guys that were already there on division staff waiting to go into command. So I arrive, sign in, I report, and that's when my brigade commander at the time, who I'd served with at the 101st, tells me that I wasn't coming down there to be an operation officer. I was going to the division headquarters to be a staff officer, which was kind of a hard blow because those are two completely different jobs. Again, hindsight being 2020, the best thing that could have ever happened to me going to that organization. I got to go to the division headquarters and find out how this organization does business, the expectations of it. As the division training officer, I was involved with ranges, ammunition, parachute issues, you name it, and I was involved in it somehow at my grade. So when I did get down there 7 months later, I knew how to get parachutes, how you request them. I knew how to get ranges. I knew what the expectations of the range control was for your scenario for them to approve it and allow you to do what you wanted to do. So again, had it worked out the way it was originally planned, I don't think I'd be standing here today.
Yeah, got to hear it. Awesome to always hear, right, the ability to pull takeaways from your experience, especially, control the controllables type of a thing. So yeah, really glad to hear that. From that point, what you continue in your process, correct? Where's next?
Finished being the division training officer, and I went down to a battalion to be a operations officer. Just so happens the operations officer moved up to be the executive officer. He and I were lieutenants together in 1st Ranger Battalion. So it was a nice merging of our capabilities in the organization. And as luck would have it, we were activated as a global response force with no notice deployment going into Iraq to support a 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment up in Talafar. So go into there. We spend 6 months there. We redeploy. I served another year as the Battalion 3, and we went back to Iraq again. Then after that, I came back, and I was assigned to the Joint Readiness Training Center at Fort Polk, Louisiana. Again, depending upon who you talk to, it's one of the less desirable locations for an Army guy to go to, Leesville, Louisiana. It's like I tell my son, there's certain assignments in the Army that whether people have been there or not, they're going to tell you they're fantastic and others suck. It's all about what you make of it. I can tell you, having served in some phenomenal assignments in phenomenal locations, Fort Polk, Louisiana, as an observer controller at the Joint Readiness Training Center, is my family's favorite assignment in my military career. One that everyone said, you're going to hate it, you're not going to like it, your family's going to despise it, they're just going to want to leave as fast as possible.
Yep, totally.
Military career, I had predictability. I knew when a rotation was happening, when exercises were taking place, and we made the absolute most of my almost 2 years there. I made battalion command. I was selected for battalion command off of an Army board. Going back to the 82nd, I had a date for when I was supposed to transition, and I got accelerated by about 4 months into that.
Awesome. For each of these stations, was your family moving with you?
Absolutely. My family and I, we made a decision after the first deployment. If this was not going to be a one and done to either theater, there was probably going to be a lot more of them. That we would not voluntarily separate the family. The Army was going to separate us mandatorily, periodically throughout my career, whether it is a training mission to the National Training Center, the Joint Readiness Training Center, an overseas training mission. We were going to be separated enough. It was more important for our family to be a coherent organization, nucleus with a mom and a dad, than it was for them to stay in their school with their peer group. So yes, my family went on every assignment with me.
Amazing. What was like an average time block that you were in each city, state?
The average assignment in the Army is about 2 years. Okay. I cut some of those short by going through assessment selection to go to a different unit, and then coming out of Joint Readiness Training Center, it got cut about 4 months short, being accelerated into battalion command.
So, out of curiosity, I mean, again, this will play back to your childhood, naturally so. Moving even in two-year time frames, and to your point, right? Sometimes it's shorter. What's kind of your advice in being able to manage moving with your family so frequently?
Number one, don't listen to what anybody else has to say about your next assignment. Your next assignment is what you make of it. If you dwell too much on that, you let your wife or your kids listen to other people talk about it, you're already putting yourself in a bad position. I don't mean to skip forward, but on one of my assignments, which we'll come to, as we're driving into it, my wife calls me on the phone crying, "Where have you taken me?" 2 years later, we're leaving. She calls me at that almost the same point crying, telling me how much she's going to miss the people and that location for how much she loved it there. So number one, don't listen to other people. Number two, do your homework. Find out what is there for you to do on your off time. Critical for your family to have those kind of things out there to look forward to. Reach out to people there, establish a network before you get there that's prepared to receive you, to help you get integrated not only into the organization, but to the community and the surrounding area. And then start talking to schools. Absolutely critical, because we move our kids so often. School systems, accreditations, how they look at what you did in this school to where you're supposed to be when you get to this school can be different. I know with my oldest son, who is very gifted in school, we were always trying to keep him in advanced or gifted programs. Some places we went and didn't have them. So we did a lot of that. My wife did. My wife's a school teacher. She taught AP Calculus and Trig. So we kind of had study periods in the evening to make sure that he wasn't bored in class, was not making any progress, because we knew we wouldn't be in that assignment for very long, that we'd be going someplace else, and he had to be ready to assimilate into that program and be at the level that he was supposed to be at.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I'd also suggest, kids or no kids, that advice applies, right? Any adult is also going to need community and what to do in their off time, to your point. Also going back to your point in terms of, your experience is going to be what you take away from it. You can look at moving around all these times as literally just that, right? Experience that you otherwise wouldn't have. And I do think if you can create that mindset, and saying this to any, veteran that's bouncing around through their career, I mean, that's an amazing experience, right? You always have the opportunity for a significant chunk of your life to settle down and be in one place. So take the bouncing around as, learning and adapting and experiencing new and different things. That's awesome.
I used to tell my family all the time as we got ready to get into the throes of moving, make a bucket list of things you want to do, see, experience in our next assignment. Most of the time, we did not achieve all of them just because the pace of what was going on, especially with the war going on. The beauty is sometimes in the military, you get to serve in the same location a second time. That is where we went back and said, okay, what didn't we accomplish the first time we were here? Let's ensure that's the first things that we do this time, and then figure out what are the other things that we'd like to see and do while we're here.
Yeah, that's great. Everyone's got to love or agree with the bucket list. So yeah, that's great advice. Cool. So you finish in Louisiana. You go back to, I think you said 82nd.
Yep.
Cool. Walk us through that.
I take battalion command. Because I was accelerated into command, I left my family at Fort Polk because I was just accelerated too fast. It wasn't the school year break. I was coming out of a rotation where I was the chief of live fire, so I had to finish that rotation because they couldn't do that portion of the exercise without me being on the ground. So I was really cut to like days to get out of the field, get my truck packed, and get to Fort Bragg. Executed that, stayed with a friend from my last time serving there. My wife flew in on Thursday afternoon. My family flew in. I changed command on Friday. We made an offer on a house on Saturday because there was no on-post housing available. And I got alerted for a no-notice deployment on Tuesday.
Yeah, that's a lot.
My wife had already headed back to Fort Polk, Louisiana with the kids. I just took all of my stuff, and the first time I went in my office was, I think, Monday morning. I went into my office, and I was storing everything there that I brought with me, and then we got the notification, and it just kind of stayed there for the next 6 months while I was deployed. Wife moved the family on her own. The offer on the house was accepted, so she was able to move straight into it. I will tell you, I learned a very valuable lesson coming back from that one. When your wife moves approximately 16,000 pounds of household goods, unpacks it all, puts pictures on the wall, arranges furniture in the house, the only thing you should ever say is how much you like it.
100% agreed.
Why did you put this over here? It doesn't really, no, don't. I learned it on that one, and then the second time that it happened, I learned to just acknowledge everything and just say how much I really thought that her decisions were correct.
It's great advice, and moving is like one of my pet peeves, something that I really I struggle with now after moving around quite a bit in my life. So I can very much relate to that. I think it's great advice. I agree. So
employment. We go through and the brigade had a known deployment to Iraq. My battalion was the only one that was alerted to deploy to Afghanistan. We come back from that rotation. About 6 weeks later, we go to the Joint Readiness Training Center for our validation exercise before we deploy to Iraq. Execute JRTC, come back from that, deploy with the organization in under 3.5 months, maybe top. That wasn't even 4 months. I deployed with the brigade this time to Iraq. We spent almost a year on that one.
Oh wow, yeah. I want to point something out because we keep kind of. It's not that we're rushing, right? Obviously we don't have all the time in the world, but I do want to highlight that we're moving quickly through deployments and significant accomplishments in your career, in your life. So I want to, I'm laughing because it's crazy to even think that, we're just ran through, 7 or 8 of them in a matter of minutes. So two kind of questions on that. One is, what was the feeling and or did you do anything every time that you, earned new rank?
Did I do anything in personal preparation for the duties and responsibilities, or did I do something like as with a family as a celebration?
Yeah, sorry, I meant like celebratory, personal.
Well, I'll tell you, before I ever said that I was going to compete on the next board, that I was going to compete to go to the Ranger Regiment, that I was going to go through an assessment selection for a different organization, my wife and I sat down, and I wanted to make sure that she was completely 100% on board to doing this, because as an officer in the Army, if you're married, there's an expectation of your spouse. She is going to assist you in running the family readiness group, which takes care of the spouse and the families when we deploy. And although by letter of the law, it's a commander's program, and I'm responsible for it, 99% of that work got done by my wife, because I was training an organization to go to combat. That was my number one focus. My way of taking care of a family was preparing their husband or their wife well enough that they get back off the plane when we got home. Not that was giving them time off, not that I was doing other things with them or for them. So she bore a heavy brunt of that. And, unfortunately, being in the military and the training that we do, I mean, you kind of expect casualties to be taken. You never accept them, but you acknowledge going into it the danger of what we do, that there could be casualties. It's different back home. I'm making a phone call. My wife is driving over to the house. This was my desire, my line of work that I chose. She's kind of been thrust into this position, although she agreed with me that I asked her to marry me, that this is what I wanted to do. She didn't sign up for a lot of the stuff that was forced upon her, and she did incredibly well at it.
Yeah, well said. Well said. I think it's pretty. I mean, I don't know how obvious this is to the general population, but anyone who served, I think it's pretty obvious that spouses kind of don't, I guess, get the recognition that they should get. I.e., everything that you just described. So yeah, that's really amazing, and definitely appreciate that call out and shout out to your wife. Totally agreed. So yeah, go ahead. Sorry, please.
Do something celebratory for promotions. No, nothing specific. Because it's not a shock. It's not like you get a phone call, hey, you were selected to go. You kind of know what the standards are and what your file needs to look like to be competitive. Is it a given? No. There's always surprises. But you kind of have an idea whether or not you're extremely competitive. I will tell you this, from not as a celebratory thing, but something I think a lot of young officers and NCOs that our soldiers could learn from. As I got promoted, whatever my pay rate was at that point in time, we took 10% of that and added it to what we did, how we lived. The rest of it went into savings. We were living off of it with a good quality of life. We bumped it up 10%. We put the other 90% of that pay raise into IRAs, to college accounts, into our savings account. I didn't go out and buy a new car on promotions. We didn't go out and do, obviously we went out and had dinner and stuff like that, a normal thing, but I never knew when the end was going to come. I had 3 children, and I wanted to be sure at the end, whenever that was, that I could provide.
Yep. Again, great advice to anyone, military or civilian, in terms of increase in trajectory of career and how to utilize money accordingly. So yeah, great advice. The second question I was going to ask on kind of as we're just blitzing through all of these deployments and your career in general. You could ask it now. You could answer it now. You can answer it once we get to the end of your deployments, or both. Anything in particular stand out that are kind of memorable experiences for one reason or the other in your deployments themselves?
Okay, so the one I skipped over was the most friction-related deployment. I was selected after being the Battalion 3 for 2 years and 2 deployments, I was selected to be the Brigade 3. We were not on a deployment list at that point in time, but we had organizations within inside of the brigade that were deploying and coming back. December 24th, we're on Christmas Exodus on leave. I got a phone call from the staff duty at the brigade headquarters saying that there was an officer calling me from overseas that wanted to talk to me on a secure line. Okay, so I drove in. I talked to him. I was told that we were getting ready to be notified on the 26th of December that we were going to be deploying. Called the Brigade Commander and I let him know, and he's like, do not go back into the office. Do not answer another phone call like that. When it comes to official channels, we'll notify people. We had just gotten a unit back. We'd sent another unit over. They were on block leave also. On the 25th of December, I got another phone call asking me to come in. Man, brigade commander, my boss, told me not to take this phone call. If I don't take it and he's right, we're going to be even more surprised by this deployment. He'd understand if I get caught taking this phone call, why I did it. It wasn't for me, it was for the good of the organization. So on Christmas Day, I packed the family up. We go into our brigade headquarters. I have my two sons running down the halls of my brigade headquarters, shooting at each other with airsoft guns. My daughter is standing on a stool drawing on a white erase board. My wife is outside the classified room, and I'm on the phone call being told it's coming tomorrow. Acknowledged it. Called the brigade commander. I said, "Sir, I can tell you, or we can wait till tomorrow. Either way, you're probably going to be mad at me for violating what I'm going to do." He said, "Okay, I'm coming in so we can have a real conversation." That day, the execute order came in, and no notice for the entire brigade. We're calling a unit that had been on block leave after a 3-month deployment to Iraq. We're trying to get them back to Fort Bragg. We've got equipment that's in the air coming back for them. And this is the beginning of the surge, 2007, 2008, where we pushed an enormous force package in. We were not supposed to be on that because we were in a habitual relationship with a certain organization, sending a battalion over at a time out of the brigade. The unit that was supposed to be going, a heavy unit, just could not make the timeline. It was physically impossible for them to get all of their equipment onto boats and get into theater. So we did one of the largest air movements from Fort Bragg for an entire brigade with every piece of our equipment in under 7 days. Wow. And we got it into Kuwait, and immediately in Kuwait we started pushing forward. By the middle of January, 2nd, 3rd of January, we were forward in our battle space executing combat operations. This was for a 3-month deployment, is what we're told. Go, hold it until this unit can get there. At about the 3-month mark, we had our first general officer come and announce to us that we would not be leaving at 3 months, that it was going to go to 6 months. We've already got the battle space, we're the right kind of force, we're just going to hold it till 6. A little bit of consternation because we only packed for 3. A lot of our equipment that we would have taken with us if we knew we were going to be there, uniforms included, did not come. So we started the process of getting stuff forward. At about the 5-month, 25th day, we have a one higher ranking general officer come talk to us and tell us that it's just gone to 9 months. Okay, now remember, we left our families under a 90-day thinking deployment.
Christmas.
And the surge was pretty brutal, what was going on, especially in the battle space that we owned in Baghdad. So about the 8-month and 20th day, the most senior ranking guy in Iraq comes and talks to us. And we'd already heard rumors that people were coming and doing 15-month rotations. And that's when we got told, hey, it's not really going to be 9. We're going to keep you for all 15.
Wow.
So, yeah, that was I would say that's probably the hardest one that my wife has had to go through.
Sure.
Families that were expecting 3, it went to 15. A lot of casualties through the organization. Now, she wasn't the commander, so she did not have any outright responsibilities, but she was the operations officer's spouse, and she took on a lot. We had births and casualties in the rear, deaths in the rear, that we're trying to make the best decisions that we possibly could to get soldiers back for those once-in-a-lifetime events. But there was a lot of things going on forward in theater, and losing anybody at that point in time was detrimental to our mission.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I mean, that expectation setting is really brutal to come up against multiple times in a deployment itself. Yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah, thank you for sharing.
So the other thing about that is, on a no notice deployment, when they're trying to resource aircraft that get you out immediately, and you're not locked in, you can only say goodbye to your family and go through that so many times for their well-being and for your own well-being. On that one, during the surge, 3 different nights I said goodbye, And 3 different nights I went back home and did it again the next day. And finally, on that one, the wife was like, when you walk out the door tonight, do not come back until you're back for good. I cannot keep putting them through it. I probably should have done that on the second night. It slept in my office knowing that the aircraft was coming. It just hadn't been there early. I was just crushing my kids.
Yeah, tough position all around.
Yeah, and that happened on almost every one of most of my deployments were no notice, to tell you the truth, which, again, bad in that sense, good in the sense of there's not that building of stress and pressure on the family, knowing we've only got 3 months, we've got 2 months, we've got a week. Phone call comes, pager goes off, we're moving in, and it just happens. Yeah. And our favorite saying in my house, if I'm not here to help fix problems, throw money at the problem. There's no reason for you to stress about something you can't fix. That's why we have saved what we've saved. Don't stress, because I can't affect it. And my wife has been incredibly good about this. I don't hear about problems when I'm forward.
That's good.
I don't hear anything about problems unless there's something that she actually knows I need to weigh in on, or only I can weigh in on it. Carte blanche, you're the decision maker. If it's a problem that's greater than that, throw money at it to fix it if it can be fixed, because she knows that I need to be focused forward. And I will tell you that probably the thing I'm most grateful for is that she did that and allowed me to stay focused forward.
Yep, really, really important. I agree with you in the sense it's almost the better of, or the lesser of two evils, however that saying goes, in terms of knowing your deployment date and having that anticipatory stress, anxiety, etc., or just no notice deployment and you kind of rip the Band-Aid per se. Granted, there's of course pros and cons to both. Nonetheless, I can totally see why the no notice could be better in many ways.
I will tell you, having done both of them on a couple occasions, I will choose the no notice.
Yeah.
Any day of the week. Rip the Band-Aid off. It's not good for the kids. They go through a small adjustment period. That truly, they're resilient. They will be fine after 3 to 5 days. But that anticipation of just the stress that you're under as the soldier, your spouse is under, knowing that you're about to go, and the unknown, it's not good for anybody.
It's almost kind of an otherworldly feeling. I'd suggest it's a really weird aura of dark, heavy, whatever. Not good anything. Yeah. So before I ask you to kind of dive into those 2 questions, right, where we just ended, being a deployment in particular, where did we leave off?
Battalion command, the second deployment of my battalion command, finishing that year-long deployment off, came back to Fort Bragg. I'd done well enough in that assignment. Battalion command, I was chosen to be the division operations officer for the 82nd. Was supposed to immediately deploy forward, and the commanding general at the time realized that I just had almost 2 back-to-back deployments, one of them being right at 11 plus months, that he would not deploy me forward. Not what I wanted. If I'm going to do the job, whether it's forward or rear, then I want to do the job where I'm supposed to be. Again, probably the best thing for me. Sure. As a family, for me mentally, being able to collect myself and get ready for what the next mission was actually going to be. So I stayed back, and I learned a lot during that time period. As a division operations officer of 15,500 paratroopers, where half the division was deployed at any given time, every night's a real-world operation on Fort Bragg or somewhere out of a combat zone where someone's jumping out of an airplane. The most stressful time of my military career was actually when I was back in the United States out of harm's way, was doing that job. There's not enough hours in the day to get everything accomplished that's expected of you. the level that you expect of yourself, because just as much dangerous as jumping out of that plane at night than there is being forward in country, that something can happen. I will tell you, that came close to breaking me mentally, physically, and spiritually. It was brutal. I was sleeping in my office at least twice a week. I was working on either Saturday or Sunday, and none of that was to get ahead or be the spring butt raising my hand that look what I'm doing. It was to keep up or catch up. And it was bad. I couldn't sleep at night when I did go home, because the only thing that kept going through my mind is what I didn't accomplish, and what was the next day looking like, and that I wasn't going to accomplish that either. A buddy gave me some great advice. He said, sleep with a notebook on your nightstand, so that when you wake up in that sweat of something you didn't do that you forgot about, or you know that, write it down, relax you, and you can fall back asleep. It did work. One night I came home. It was about 9:30, 10 o'clock. The kids were asleep. My wife was getting ready for bed. I knew that I was going to be, again, laying in that bed, tossing and turning, looking at the ceiling fan, which my wife normally would tell me, if you're not going to sleep and you're just going to keep tossing, leave so I can sleep, because I've got to teach tomorrow. I came home that night. I had a beer, and I walked into the garage, and I'm a car enthusiast. I have a 65 Mustang that I've been building from the ground up at that point in time for about 12 years. I walked into the garage that night, and I was like, I've got to do something that takes my mind off of everything. I pulled the engine out of the Mustang that night, put it on an engine stand, and I started rebuilding it, teaching myself out of a Chilton and Haynes manual and a shop manual and YouTube videos how to do this. I will tell you, one of the scariest things, I'll never forget this, is when I finished the last bolt on that engine, and I had to think, I just finished it. I don't have anything. What am I going to do now? And that started my next big project that was well above my ability level at the time to do. But I will tell you, I'd grab a beer, go into the garage, work until I was just tired. I knew that I could sleep. And then I took a shower and I got in bed. And whether that was only 2 hours, it was 2 hours more than I was sleeping any other time. And it was a healthy 2 hours. You don't have to have something like that. You've got to have something that takes your mind off and makes you concentrate, that doesn't allow you to think about the other things that are going on around you. Because if you're not sleeping, if you're not eating, you're not at your best. And I wasn't at my best for a while in that job.
Thank you for sharing all that. That's really great advice. As you were saying and mentioning kind of your experience of, trying to go to sleep, but thinking about what you didn't accomplish and what you need to accomplish, and then that kind of cycle, I was going to ask you if you had advice on that. And then, you mentioned the advice you got and implemented for yourself, which was, keeping a notebook down. Did you try, out of curiosity, did you also try kind of journaling or writing down, those thoughts throughout the day as well?
No, my day in that job was so hectic. I didn't have time. That was part of my problem, is I didn't have time to decompress during the day. It was always from one thing to the next thing to the next thing. What that leads you to do is I've always prided myself on my work ethic. No one will outwork me. I'm always prepared. At that pace, it's physically impossible to be prepared for everything you're walking into. That added a lot of stress on my plate about professionally or personally embarrassing myself when I was supposed to be leading something and I was not fully prepared. So no, I didn't do that. I did, though, talk to the chaplain. And one day I called the division surgeon from the second story, asked him to come down there and take a look at me. I found out that I had high blood pressure. This was causing high blood pressure. I will tell you, it's a good thing that I did at that point in time, reach out to other people, and again, swallow your ego, and got some help.
Yeah, great advice. I can completely understand why that would be such a difficult experience and period of life. When you kind of concluded that, what would that be called? Position?
That position.
Yeah, that position. What was, I mean, before even going on to what was next, kind of how did you, understand what had just happened? How did you kind of, decompress from it?
I will tell you, the Army does not normally give you enough time to decompress in your career from position to position. You're at that point in time, you've kind of been earmarked by what we call kingmaker jobs, battalion command, division G3, and there's a couple other ones out there. You kind of know that you're at least competitive for what's next. They keep you in that job as long as they can before you have to leave. My decompression came when I got accepted to the fellowship. I did not go to the Army's War College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. I went and did the civilian program at Duke and UNC. That was my decompression time.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense that, because you're in a civilian environment that you would, have that time frame to decompress or reflect. Reflect was the other word I was looking for. Was there anything in particular that you did in that time frame to reflect on the position you were just in, or was it just naturally, shifting environment?
I think the best thing that happened to all four of us, or the five of us, myself being included in that, was that we decided to carpool together to Duke or UNC because our classes were pretty much the same. That was therapeutic. Most of us had relatively the same experiences throughout our career up to that point in time. Most of us had been recently deployed or in what we'd like to call a heavy-hitting job that took a lot out of you. The opportunity to have an hour with these guys going both ways was therapeutic.
Sure.
It's always good to have shared experiences with people and then be able to talk about those experiences.
Yep. That's awesome. Yeah, that's a pretty great environment to have and peer group to have, right? A few hours each day, basically trapped, right, more or less in a car. So that's awesome. So you finish this program. We already talked about that. What happens after it?
Okay, pretty stressful time period right before I left. I was notified that I was selected to command a brigade in the Army, and I was supposed to be going to the 10th Mountain Division. I am driving because you have to go and do what's called an orientation course at Carlisle Barracks in Pennsylvania, the Army's War College, because we're still accredited through them while we're doing this program. So we go up there for 2 weeks. We do an orientation, tell us what our obligations are to them. Our obligations are to not only the civilian university, but the community while we're doing this program. While I'm driving up there, I get notified that the brigade I was supposed to go and take, a light unit, went away. I was now going to take over an armor unit.
Well, what does went away mean? Someone else took that position?
No, we cut numbers, and that organization was no longer going to exist. The people were going to disband into other units, and that's how the Army was downsizing at that time period. So I couldn't command where I was comfortable in the infantry, light infantry community, that I was going to an armor unit, tanks, Bradleys, big heavy equipment, where I'd never served in before. Pretty stressful knowing that I was competing against guys that grew up in that community. Incredibly competitive. And again, like I told you before, very self-conscious about not being professionally or personally embarrassed in anything that I've done, that I was going into a completely new environment. Finished the year out. I went to a couple of military schools during that time period to get me prepared to go to that organization. Now, I'll tell you the two things that were most stressful in the program that we were attending was, number one, writing a 40-page thesis that you were going to have to defend. We hadn't written more than a one-page document or a PowerPoint slides for quite a while in the Army. I mean, this was going to be challenging. And then the second thing, probably we used to laugh about it all the time, was, how are you supposed to dress as a civilian? I mean, we all had khaki pants because we're Army officers, khaki pants and some kind of button-up and a lot of unit polos. There was always one of those things where we looked at each other before we left and we're like, Yeah, that doesn't work, man. Wife, look at you before you came today. Yeah, we did a lot of expanding our wardrobe for that year so that we had fit in as best as a 40-plus-year-old guy can do in a civilian university. Yeah. So finish that assignment up, go to Fort Bliss, Texas. That's where my wife cried as we drove in. We'd been on the East Coast most of my military career. She came from the Northeast, mountains and greenery, and there was nothing green as we made that drive. And I remember calling my wife and telling her I've got good news and bad news on the drive. She's like, I was like, what do you want to hear? She goes, bad news. Give me the bad news first and you know something good. And I was like, we've been traveling for 2 days and we're halfway there. What's the good news? We won't cross another state line for the rest of the time. We're in the great state of Texas, and that's what we'll be for the next 2 days as we drive across this thing. Again, called me on the phone, asked me where I'd taken her, what were we going to do in a desert environment, and I will tell you that that was probably one of the most, at that point in time, it was my most rewarding assignments. Serving that organization. I brought a culture that was not typical to that organization, a heavy organization. I brought a light infantry mindset. People mean everything. If you can't, what only gets on the battlefield is what is healthy enough to jump out of a plane with me and arrive. The heavy, and I served in that 2 assignments in the heavy organizations. It's platform centric. It matters how many tanks are capable of rolling onto the battlefield, how many Bradleys are capable of rolling onto the field. It's all about maintenance, and rightfully so. I took a different mindset to it and said, my first priority is going to be people, as if we were a light organization. If I don't have the people to get onto the battlefield, then it doesn't work. If I take care of the people first, they'll take care of those platforms. And that was kind of the leader mentality I took going into it, and it worked. It was probably, at that point in time, like I said, the most rewarding and truly the most fun I've had in the Army, learning about this other form of warfare that was out there besides a guy jumping out of a plane with a rifle and, if you're lucky, a pistol too. Right. We were bringing devastating capability to the battlefield. The training was incredible.
I'll suggest again advice that really applies to any industry, any vertical, right, is people first, right? People are always, unless somehow you're just completely automated in literally everything, that aside, people are going to be driving whatever it is that you're doing. So yeah, that's great. That's great advice.
Yeah. If you don't take care of the people first, they're not there on the back end to take care of your organization, the mission that you've been given, or theoretically you as you progress through whatever you're doing in life at that point in time. So yeah, that's the first piece of advice to anybody.
Does what you brought up earlier, I wish I could remember the exact circumstance where you mentioned you were going to a heavy division because you needed, right, alternative, whatever, leadership. Did that end up like full circle, or is it just unrelated?
No, at that point in time, in the Army, if you made it past battalion command, you weren't going to get crossed over. We call it the heavy light transition. You were just too senior. There's no way that you can be successful at this point in time in your career of transitioning to this entirely new type of formation. The Chief of Staff of the Army, might have been the Vice at the time, 4-star General Allen, called me, and he was the one that told me that assignment went away, and that if he heard me talking about retiring because of this assignment, that he was going to help accelerate my wishes. His point was, you go where the Army tells you to go and you do as well as you possibly can. Just so happens General Allen was also in the same circumstance 18 years prior in his military service. Had served twice or 3 times in the Ranger Regiment, had served in the 82nd, the 18th Airborne Corps, all these light assignments. He goes to the 3rd Infantry Division, an armor unit. And his last thing on the phone was, hey, I know you don't think that this is a good thing for you, but I'll just tell you, I think I've been relatively successful in my career going there as a colonel. Or you're a 4-star. I guess I can't really argue about that. Yes, you've been incredibly successful. So I went there understanding that. I went there extremely nervous that this was going to be where the career basically stagnates, that there was no way that I could learn this as fast as I needed to, and be able to take care of the organization, train the organization the way it was supposed to be, and be competitive with my peers down there. What saved me was my people first mentality of how I wanted to do this. I mean, everyone knew that I was coming in with a very light infantry background, that there was going to be a lot of tutoring that I needed to have about a maintenance program and how maintenance works in a heavy organization with $700,000 tank engines. When in my last organization, the most important thing we had was the sights for a Dragon missile. That was the one thing, I was really responsible for, to keeping on the pacing items of being up and ready to go at any point in time. Now, half of my organization was one of those. And managing my brigade budget was about, I think at the time, it was almost half of the entire 82nd Airborne Division's budget, my brigade budget, because of the tanks, the Bradleys, and the heavy equipment. I had not ever dealt with anything like that.
Man, just totally different scale. Out of curiosity, at that kind of, to put it in perspective of, organization, right? At that level of management, I'll call it, that rank, was it as critical to understand like literal, granular on the ground operations as it was like leadership of organization?
I would tell you probably a 50-50. And I say that only because you've got to understand the capabilities of your organization and their equipment. You've got to understand how to doctrinally employ them correctly. You are the final say in the operations order of how you're going to execute in our training missions that were supposed to simulate combat. At the same time, what saved me was that kind of that people first. I took care of people. I always had a saying in most of my promotion speeches, I've got a knack for building teams. Teams that refuse to let me fail, even when sometimes they thought I might be trying to fail by some of the decisions I made. So the point that you make about the granularity, yes, to some extent, but at the same time, by taking care of those people and building strong, coherent teams, they made up for my lack of knowledge. Made sure that I was taken care of and prepared to do what I was supposed to do.
That's awesome. So how long did that position last?
2 years.
Sorry, I feel like I said that in a kind of negative way for no reason. I meant to say, how long was that position?
2 years. Most of the time, you're going to be right. So I finished that. At the time, I was not fully joint qualified. You must be fully joint qualified to even be in the hunt or competitive for general officer. I still needed, I think it was 4 months of joint time to be fully joint qualified and be able to even compete. The Army had decided I was going to go to the Joint Staff at the Pentagon, where I would be jointed, and that's where we thought we were going. As a matter of fact, I had orders at that point in time, was starting to talk to transportation about going to the Pentagon in D.C. Had never served in D.C. I've never been in the Pentagon before, except for briefings. So we kind of thought it was a done deal. I then get a call from the Vice Chief of Staff of the Army. No, I'm sorry, it was the FORSCOM, Forces Command Commander, 4-star at Fort Bragg, telling me that a guy from the 1st Infantry Division was going to call me, and I was interviewing for a job there to be the Division Chief of Staff. I told him, well, sir, can't really do that. I'm on orders to go to the Pentagon. He's like, I won't use the term he used, but if you mess that interview up, you might still go there. But as of right now, you're going to 1st Infantry Division. They're about to deploy, and you'll be joint qualified faster. And oh, by the way, I need your skill set in that organization as they get ready to deploy.
Before we move into this next position, I didn't ask. I don't think we reviewed if you had any deployments with Armored.
No, I did not deploy while I was in my first brigade. So that's 2 years I was home, except for training.
Is that like
the 2 8-week periods I was in the field continuously, and then I will tell you, an armored unit spends a lot of time away from home. Just qualifying on their tanks and Bradleys is a 6-week process. Add on to it, we spent 6 weeks on our operational mission preparation out in the field executing missions out there. They spent a lot of time away from home. I was very shocked by that when I first got there.
Is that unusual that they didn't deploy in that period of time?
No. Yes and no. The heavy force really wasn't a force that was being required in Afghanistan. We just couldn't employ a lot of the capabilities that they had. So you'd be taking them out of their platforms that they were trained on, putting them in a different platform and employing them. In Iraq, that kind of ground fighting was over also. So the Army in general was starting to look at where are we going to be employed next. And the greatest thought was Middle East, desert environment. We need to keep some of these forces at home and continue to train and be prepared if we do have to go somewhere where that capability is required.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. All right, so we got to the end of this deployment. You talked about shifting to your next, end of this position. You talked about shifting to your next position. Let's carry forward from there.
So we leave Fort Bliss, Texas, and go to Fort Riley, Kansas. It's a heavy division. I was the division chief of staff. I was there for probably 3 to 4 months as we were coming up on our deployment, the non-deployment, doing some major exercises and some certifications through our higher headquarters in preparation to go. We were actually in the field when my division commander got relieved. So he was taken out of command. 13 days, approximately 13 days prior to deploying, we got a new division commander. And normally that time period is your last opportunity for leave before we deploy. Because we were having to get him ready to deploy and bring him up to speed on everything we'd done. We'd already done what we call our pre-deployment site surveys, 2 of them, where we went forward, saw the unit we'd be replacing, started learning how they did business, what the expectations were. Spent a lot of time, no leave prior to that one. That was a year-long deployment. Again, came back from that deployment where we were the Joint Task Force headquarters out of Baghdad. And I had 3 days to drop those bags, pick up different bags, and get to the final course that I had to graduate from to be competitive for general officer.
And where was this final course?
That was in Norfolk, Virginia.
Was that military course or civilian?
Yes, strictly military services. Again, it's the final joint qualification that you have to be fully joint qualified.
Because I think we probably didn't dive into any of the courses that you went through. Let's dive into this one a little bit. What was that like, even on like a day-to-day basis?
A complete gentleman's course, all academic. Every branch of service was there. In my small group, and we were called the senior class because a lot of people go a little bit earlier in their career than we were. We were on the final steps of being selected. 3 aircraft carrier commanders were in this course. 2 submarine commanders were in this course. Pat Ryder, who's the Department of Defense spokesperson that you see on TV all the time, the 2-star, he was in this course with us. A lot of things dealing with all branches of service and having to plan for the employment of it, whether it be national disaster back in the States, national emergency, to things that happen downrange overseas during conflict that you've got to be able to coordinate for joint services.
Interesting, yeah. And what's like a typical single day structure like?
At this point in time, a gentleman's course, the expectation is you get up and do your own physical training, and in class by 9 o'clock. Class on the average day would go to 2 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon because there was an excessive amount of reading that you had to do also. That was the big thing. Minor writing assignments, a lot of briefing requirements. You were briefing all the time and getting honed for, as an Army guy, I know how to brief an Army general officer to gain approval for something. Sitting in a joint billet briefing a Marine Corps, a Navy, or an Air Force general officer had never briefed anything like that before. What was important, how to set the conditions. So that was a lot of that course.
That's really interesting. Is there a way to kind of describe, like even broadly, a difference between doing your briefings, within Army versus briefings that you just described cross branch?
Well, a lot of terminology. We've got a lot of acronyms in the Army. I'm sure every service does. They're not the same. So there's a lot of learning that went on with understanding that piece of it. There's a lot of learning that went on with the colors of money when you're talking about a joint force compared to an Army force, how that gets employed, how they can change colors of money to be able to do what you need it to do. Very laborious process. That was interesting. The other interesting thing was we worked on some wicked problems for the Department of Defense, communications.
Sure.
Expect that all of us are the same, and we're all Americans, and we're all great at what we do at that point in time. But our systems don't talk, or didn't at that point in time, talk to each other. Chains of command are very, very flexible. A guy that is assuming he would be in command is not in command because we're operating in the United States for a national disaster or something like that. And learning about how the National Guard actually executes, how you operate with, and I forgot about this piece of it. Civilian leadership was a lot of this course. At that level, you're going to be dealing with our civilian leaders, and our military force is run by, governed, commanded by a civilian. Understanding who's who, what rank structure really equates to as a civilian, understanding before you get yourself in trouble, not understanding what their rank structure is. So it was a very good course. But coming 3 days after I'd just gotten back from a year deployment, was not exactly what my wife and kids had expected.
Were you? Well, first of all, before I continue, that is really interesting. I'm sure that was just fascinating to learn and go through. Were you now going back to where you just led off in terms of family? Were you going home? Were you seeing them every day after the course?
No, because I was still assigned to the 1st Infantry Division at Fort Riley. I was only there for this 5-week course. I was going back there to finish my assignment off, and then at that point in time, I really thought that was probably the end of my career because less than 1% of a year group is selected as a general officer. I kind of thought that I had to do this to compete, but there's more guys that are told no than there are yes, obviously. So I was going to go finish whatever it was in my career back at Fort Riley and then see what happened.
All right, so you get back at Fort Riley. What happens next?
Fort Riley, obviously we start to spin up for the next rotation, which was about a year away, which has to do with what we call warfighters, which puts us in a combat scenario out in the field with all of our tactical equipment, communications, running a simulated combat operations over our computer systems. For the organization, the headquarters, it doesn't even matter whether it was computer simulated. You're fighting an Op4 who's assigned to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. They call them the world-class Op4. They're very good at what they do. For us, it's just like being in combat, except there's no danger. Your hours are the same. You're pulling 20-hour days as a staff officer getting ready to go. So we do one of those. When we got ready to execute our second one, I was told that I was going to take a portion of the headquarters forward to Korea to execute on the peninsula with our higher headquarters, and my boss was going to stay at Fort Riley in the field so we could do what's called distributed command locations. The day before I went to Korea, I got a call from the FORCECOM commander again, asked me if I wanted to compete to command this new unit that they were standing up called the Security Force Assistance Brigade. And I obviously said yes. Immediately I said yes, and to his credit, I'd never seen this side of the guy. He said, won't accept that. I'm like, well, sir, you called me and asked me if I said yes. You're saying you won't accept that? I said, am I supposed to say no? I don't. I'm confused right now. He said, nope. I'm going to call you on Tuesday, and you're going to tell me that you and your wife have agreed to compete for this command. I was like, sure, my wife is all in. She loves what we do, all about it. It's the only thing we know. We're good. And he's like, nope. I was like, well, sir, it's going to make it complicated. I'll be in Korea on Tuesday, and our timelines won't match up. And to his credit, kind of a funny guy, he says, here's the deal. I'm going to call you at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Tuesday afternoon, and you're going to give me your answer. So I said, that's, holy crap, he's calling me like 1 o'clock in the morning. I have to be on the meeting when he calls me. Get up and get ready and everything else for this thing. So I get over there. He calls me as expected. I tell him we're both in. And I kind of figured in my mind, hey, this is the coolest thing anyone's ever done for me. I'm not going to be selected as a general officer, but I'm going to be given an opportunity to command a 2nd Brigade and leave the Army as a commander. Not as a staff guy working in the Pentagon or a staff guy on somebody's staff. I'm going to leave the Army in command. It's the only thing I ever wanted to do was lead soldiers. So I was like, this is fantastic. Still at that point in time, I didn't think I was truly competitive for promotion. Come back from Korea after the 2 or 3 weeks that we were there, come back, finish up my time at Fort Riley, and I go to Fort Hood, Texas to stand up this new unit, the Security Force Assistance Brigade. I get there, I'm the first guy to arrive. 2 days later, my sergeant major arrives, and then about a week later, we get our first battalion commander. So there's about 4 or 5 of us working out of a temporary building waiting for them to get our building set up. And we had 13 months to recruit 880 people for the organization, man it, equip it, train it, certify it, and deploy it to Afghanistan. Wow.
Before you even continue, your sergeant major and anyone else on your, I'll call it, executive staff, were those people that you either chose or knew, or were they assigned to you?
So pretty interesting. So the sergeant major, again, was a second-time brigade sergeant major. He was assigned to me. I hit the jackpot with him. He is now a 4-star sergeant major. Absolutely phenomenal. Kind of a funny story there. My first brigade sergeant major, when I was an armor brigade commander, was the TRADOC sergeant major. When he retired, his replacement was my SFAB sergeant major. So I got to go up there and speak at it, to speak about the outgoing, having served as my brigade commander, and the incoming serving as my brigade commander. And I just tell you how good and how lucky I was of the people that were chosen for me. Then the 6 battalion commanders were selected by a central selection board, just like a regular organization, but they were second-time commanders also. And then the other, what does that make, 873, I think, I had to recruit out of the Army and bring them into the organization. That was phenomenal, though.
What does that even look like?
Yeah. When you interview them and you say yes, it's all on you at that point in time. You made that decision.
So what is that? Sorry, the lag had me cut you off there. What is the recruiting for these 800 plus people? What does that look like?
Okay, so there had been 2 stood up before us. One was currently deployed. The second was about to be deployed, which gave us our 13 months to be backfilling them. I will tell you, this was probably the most interesting thing I've done in my military career. Nobody knew about this organization, what it was going to be tasked to do. bunch of rumors out there that General Milley, who was the chief of staff at the Army time before he took over as being the Joint Chiefs, that this was going to die when he retired. There was no way we were going to keep it around. We were hiring all of these people to do these things. We were stealing all the talent from the Army, that they're going to kill it immediately. So there was this rumor in the Army, don't go there if you want your career to end. Do not do it. That was the first thing that we had to fight, was that going away. I mean, I've got a $550 million budget that I've got to purchase everything for this organization. And we're kind of doing it on the high end to make sure that people knew that this was going to be a quality organization. The Army was committing to this thing. So a lot of it was word of mouth. And I told everybody in the organization, wow, your responsibility, unless you're a commander, is that you find me 2 people that you personally want to go to combat with. I did because I interviewed everybody from the rank of E7 and above. Sergeant Major interviewed everybody else. Now, you got to remember, we were the exact same structure as a normal infantry brigade, except we had no privates, specialists, or corporals. Everybody was E5 and above. So we had carte blanche to find people, to go out and find them. And General Milley made it very clear. I had gates I had to meet for my hiring and manning of this organization for him to feel comfortable sending me to be certified, validated, and deploying. We got creative. We tied companycommander.com, which is a web forum for guys in company command. We said, if they're on that thing, then they're pretty interested in what they're doing for a career. We tied that to social media accounts to find somebody that I knew him to tell me if I really wanted to spend my time interviewing. I found guys going on the worst assignments they could possibly go to that they didn't want to go to, and I could get them out of that assignment by getting them to just say, I volunteer to come and serve at your organization. Now, that get out of jail free card, that wasn't something that we liked to employ all the time. I mean, that was for quality guys that we needed, and we knew that we were deploying so soon. But then finally got creative with the Human Resources Command out of Fort Knox. And, we were like, I want to know everyone who's got a home of record in this rank of Texas. Now, once I did that, I said, now I want to know out of that group, how many of us served twice in the state of Texas? So then I knew that they were in their home state. They wanted to serve in their home state. Then those were guys that we went after to pull in.
That's awesome. So what was the general purpose, mission set of this unit you're setting?
Advise and assist at this point in time a foreign partner force forward in combat. So our mission when we got to Afghanistan was we were partnered with the 201st Corps, Afghan Corps, in the eastern portion of Afghanistan. So as my 2 predecessors, when I took over, I was the train, advise, and assist command east, so the eastern portion of Afghanistan. We were the commander of that area. The 201st Corps was our fighting counterpart, and I had advisors that were partnered with, at Echelon, his formations that trained them, advised them, supported them, and then conducted liaise as we conducted operations.
And this is your final position in service, correct?
We thought it was.
Okay, yeah.
I'm living the dream. I've got, I can finally make decisions based on what I feel is the best thing. I know the Army thing. So, I'm living the dream at this point. So I'm getting ready to deploy. And then I get notified that I was selected. I get what's called FROCT. So my promotion date is a certain date. Because I was deploying in this position forward in theater, and I was going to be working with a 3-star Afghan commander, they went ahead and promoted me earlier and pinned me before we left the States going forward. Then I had to stop making it. Wasn't really as much fun anymore. I think this is my last job in the Army, and I could really do whatever I wanted to in that job. We get trained certified, we get overseas. About halfway through our rotation is when COVID struck. And it was bad on the Afghan force, the Afghan population. Very bad. we were prepared for it to be as bad with us, and the commander, who was forward in theater, I mean, probably one of the smartest guys I've ever met, the best leaders I've ever served for. We'd done rehearsals. We knew how many ventilators we had. We knew down to medications that would induce a medical coma to intubate at our sites. We had doctors forward positioned with us. We had quarantine sites, level 3 hospitals that could do the intubation and keep them. He made the decision at about our 6 to 8 month mark, somewhere in there of our 9-month rotation. I now have a formation who's prepared to deal with this. I can't bring a new organization in as this thing is about to get bad across the board. So he stopped all deployments and redeployments. And we ended up doing close to 11 months. So only about 2+ months more. But this is when COVID was hitting in the States, when everything was locked down. And, you know, I was hearing the stories from my wife and just unable to fathom what they were going through back here. What do you mean they're not going to school? What do you mean the installation is locked down at a certain time where you cannot get off or come back in? What do you mean stores are closing? It just didn't make sense to us forward, what was happening in the rear. And I'll tell you, to this day, yeah, I never went through it back here. Completely different kind of stress forward with our Afghan counterparts having it so bad and having to conduct operations with them. You know, I've been swabbed 42 times. Coming off of every mission, getting swabbed, going into isolation for 2 days, waiting to be cleared back again to go back and conduct the next operation with my staff and my counterparts. And that's not a lot, to tell you the truth. There's guys out there that hundreds of times. Every time they went in the Pentagon, you know, they were getting nasal swab. But it was just a different environment for us. By the time we came home, a lot of the stipulations, the regulations, the really lockdown had relaxed quite a bit. So we did miss that portion of it.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, you were dealing with it differently deployed.
Yeah, completely different. I mean, we still were able to walk around. We could still be within 6 feet of each other. We were getting randomly tested all the time, but nothing like what was going on in the States.
Right.
Just kind of surprising.
Before finishing that position, that period, I was curious, you know, out of that budget that you had to stand up, you know, that unit, what was like some big ticket items that you had to consider, like singular items that were, you know, big significant chunks of that budget?
Well, I mean, although the military issues you weapons, it still comes out of your budget. Somebody has to pay for them. Those were large chunks out of it. I got vehicles to trade on, radio equipment, you name it. I mean, I was an organization that did not even have a property book. You have to have a property book to own equipment. It's funny story about that is we're sitting in the Corps Commander's VIP office for his visiting people that come to see him when they need an office to work at, because there's only place for them to put us. And I'm going through this 3-inch order of everything that we're supposed to have. We're supposed to do our certification process, all this kind of stuff. I looked at the Sergeant Major and I was like, Sergeant Major, I need some of those sticky labels so I can tab this thing so I can find out pertinent information. Where do we get those? How do we get those? Because like the first thing we got to do is hire a supply sergeant to get those for us. The very next day, we made our first of 42 flights on recruiting trips. People say they've stood up units. I will tell you, if you actually do the homework, there hasn't been a completely new organization that does not come with no lineage, with no nothing in quite a while.
Up with some baseline is very different from standing it up from nothing.
I mean, I reestablished 2 units when I was an armor brigade commander that had gone away and come back again, but I absorbed them into my organization and had the backbone for them to be able to come in and start doing it. We had nobody down there, and it was, again, based off of the people and the capabilities that we hired.
That's awesome. That's an amazing accomplishment. So kind of where I, you know, just backtracked from, it was you're getting back from this deployment. You had mentioned it was cut short because they were cutting everyone, off in terms of deployment because of COVID. I mean, how short was that? Because it sounded like you said you were there for 11 months anyhow.
I was extended 2 months.
You were extended
longer because he did not want to rotate us out and bring in a new organization that already started this process and understood how we were going to deal with COVID in the country.
I see. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So you get back from that deployment. What happens next?
Get back from that deployment. Start the training process. Again, obviously, as soon as we get back, we go on block leave for 2 weeks. Actually, I think they gave us 3 weeks for it. Most of the country is still locked down to some level. It wasn't like anybody was going to Disneyland or anything like that with their families. But we immediately came back and started the process of receiving all of our equipment from overseas, accounting for it, and then starting a training program to get ready for the next one because we knew when our next rotation was actually going to be. At that point in time, my 2 years, again, the magic 2 years was up, and I'd been promoted to Brigadier General, and I was selected to go and be the Mission Command Center of Excellence Director at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. Moved the family to Leavenworth. I took over that job. I had 14 subordinate directorates underneath it, from everything from doctrine to the network of the future, and everything that runs between that. I did that for 2 years. I was a non-deploying job, so I was, most of the time I was actually on the road, TDY, briefing what was going on in one of those 14 subordinate directorates. It was during that time period that I found out that I was not selected for my second star. Again, went through that period of ego, being crushed, and it honestly took me looking at how many of the people that I knew, that I always said when you saw those lists, man, there's so many people that are better than me, that their luck and timing just wasn't right, and that's why they aren't sitting in this position. And by law, there can only be so many general officers in the Army. So many people have to get out to bring in new. So once I kind of got over that, accepted my fate, the reality of it, I called the owner of this company, who, by the way, was my fire support officer in 1st Ranger Battalion for our deployment to Iraq and Afghanistan. He had gotten out, started the company, grew it to where it was, and I called him because it always kind of been in the plans that I would come and work with him. I called him and said, "Is the offer real now?" So I'm talking about us working together and me moving down there. Is it real? He said, yes, it was. So I decided this was the next place for the Masaracchia household, and we made the move.
So, before we conclude your military service, at that point, after your last position, is there any even horizontal move that you could make if you wanted to?
I was offered the chance for what they call an exception to policy to compete one more year. I kind of thought the writing was on the wall. I mean, if they hadn't chose me in my previous looks, what was going to change it? And it's all about the composition of the board and who knows you and who can speak about you and who's trying to get you into it. I would have probably they'd have given me a different assignment. I'd have moved the family again. And in my mind, I kind of said that I'm going to take a back-breaking job because I see the carrot. I want the carrot. So I'm going to work my ass off again for a year, moving my family. For more than likely the result being I worked my ass off for another year. My daughter had just graduated high school. She was not going to decide on a college until she knew where we were going to be. So that would mean she was doing something online or a community college for that year. And then we'd go through this whole process again of transitioning out of the service.
Yeah.
As much as I love the military and I miss it every day, it was time I made a decision for the family. And transitioning out was the right thing to do to get us positioned here. My daughter could pick her college, and we could finally plant some roots somewhere and start this chapter.
That makes a lot of sense. So now we're on this period of transition, right? Transitioning from military service into civilian, and then as you already touched on, right, where you're at now in terms of profession, the transition into civilian life, how did that happen for you? What was that like?
It's freaking hard. It's hard. I was disgruntled with the military for not selecting me. I thought I'd done everything they ever wanted. They were selecting people that didn't have as much combat experience. I was weighing all the wrong things. I was just angry. I was like, I am ready to get out. So, as soon as I get out and start my next chapter, the happier I'll be. But then it actually happens. And you're kind of lost if you want to know the truth. I mean, everything, the simple things, like we were used to purging every 2 years our house because we were getting ready to move. So you no longer do that. You no longer live on post. You own a house. You're buying stuff to take care of yards and all of that stuff. And most importantly, I missed every day being around soldiers and being around my peers that had my same experiences. I've got some great people I work with. I love them to death. I'd go back to back with them in a bar fight. We'll never have the same relationship as I had with when I was a commander, my operations officer, and my XO, or my company commander, or my sergeant major. There's just a special bond that you have going through shared suffering, for lack of better terms. Yep. You can't have anywhere else. And I'll tell you the other thing is, after serving as many years as you serve in the military, it doesn't matter how many years or how many deployments you have, we kind of have a dark sense of humor. Things that shouldn't be funny are just funny to us. And I don't care how old you are. I'm still 18 years at heart, and probably mentally too, with what I think is funny sometimes. It's just different. And that truly is why. And I'll tell you, they offered me the job with the Mission Command Training Program to be what's called a senior mentor. And there's not a lot of them. At first, I didn't want to do it. I was embarrassed. I'd be working with guys that had made 2 and 3 stars. I'd be going to units that, there's a 2-star division commander that is my same year group, that's where I should be by time-wise, and that they were going to think, why should I listen to Maz? He didn't make it. And then a guy called me and said, just explain that with your experiences, with your ability to build teams, with how you communicate with people out there are probably thinking, why the hell didn't Maz make it? Not, look at Maz, he didn't make it. Why should we bring him in to talk to? That was the discussion that kind of changed my mind, and the fact that if you say you miss it, either put up or shut up. Here's an opportunity for you to be around it again, contributing to what you say is your passion in life. Doing one of the most noble things you possibly could do is share your experiences, share your knowledge that you've gained over a 30-year career. So I did it. I signed on the dotted line to do it. I made the agreement with the president that I'd be gone for X amount of months every year doing it. Best decision I ever made.
I'll add one thing that you mentioned earlier in our conversation in terms of just basic stuff you don't think about in that transition close, right, when you're going to that civilian degree, that civilian university program. It was figuring out what clothes to wear, right? That's another one of them. You also mentioned in terms of where you just finished off there, going back to that mentorship kind of agreement that you have with the military, and having that kind of negative thought process of how people might perceive you versus what the reality is, which is you just mentioned. They'll think, how didn't you make it? Well, that's something that personally I struggle with, and I think a lot of veterans struggle with, is kind of that like perception, and then actually accepting, right? So actually accepting that it's not that negative mentality. How did you accept it?
I will tell you that it's hard. We're all very self-conscious. The arrogant ones didn't make it that far. They disclosed themselves, and it just didn't work out. People wouldn't follow them. People wouldn't take care of them. I think the disclosure piece of it came when we have that one-to-one interaction with the senior leaders, and it's 99% of the time I found it was all in my head. It was completely fabricated in my head that they would look at you differently, that they wouldn't think you had anything to really contribute. Again, I go back for probably the third or fourth time. Ego is a very dangerous thing. Mm-hmm. Hubris is a very dangerous thing. You have to be able to put it aside to make honest, timely, and accurate decisions.
You know, I love that you come back to that, because I mean, really, anything that you would struggle with, like internally, right, mentally, you really could always go back to ego being the core of that element that you're struggling with. So I definitely appreciate you consistently coming back to it, because I also perceive that as being the bottom line kind of truth, underlying truth. Awesome. So you make this arrangement with the military as mentorship. You're starting your career where you're at now. Walk us through kind of that process of transitioning into these roles.
The senior mentor program was easy. It's already set up with general officers, multiple different branches of what we were prior to being a general officer, our branches, our military, our Army branch. So that's easy. We show up at exercises, we evaluate, we mentor. Our goal is to make them better every day. So that's easy. The culture was very easy because we came from that culture for 30 plus years. We understood how to integrate, assimilate in that environment. Mm-hmm. The civilian sector, difficult, especially for a senior officer. Mm-hmm. I'm not used to negotiating with someone to get them to do their job. I mean, I'm not asking to do above and beyond. I'm asking, do your job. That was interesting. Firing someone, changing their job position, their duty position to better fit what the company needs. To me, after what I did for as long as I did, I could do that in a heartbeat. You're done. Mm-hmm. You're not what this company needs. You're not meeting our mission, our intent, our objectives. It is a serious emotional event for most civilians to tell somebody you're just not what we're looking for. Mm-hmm. I said, hey, look, I'm tired of writing your standards and your procedures of how we're going to make this company and grow this company for what you hired me for. But then I'm going around and I'm seeing the same thing being done. There's no forcing function. There's no teeth behind it. I'm asking people to do it. But what are you suggesting? Not the president. I try and stay away from the president. We have a personal relationship, but it's not. I want to maintain that. Mm-hmm. So I use the vice president. No military experience. Well, there's got to be some repercussions. There's got to be a forcing function for them to know they have to do these things. What's your idea? Well, the first time was a verbal counselor. I tell them, you've got to do that or don't do that. The second one, I'm putting it in writing and putting it in their personnel files. The third one, we're going to deduct pay. Mm-hmm. You'd have thought I just said we're going to kill their firstborn child. That's exactly. He's like, we can't do that. You're taking money out of their pocket that they're budgeting and everything else. I said, Clay, if somebody in this company does the same thing 3 times, if we've already told them 3 times not to do it, do we even want them in this company? We should never get to that point. Mm-hmm. It's called a forcing function for a reason. We shouldn't get to it. But if we do, then we make an example. You'd have thought I was a crazy Army guy. I was talking about executing people. I was just blown away by this thing. It is a different environment. I'll just leave it at that. There's a different way of handling problems. There's a different way. And I'm not even going to say talking to people. And like I said, I built very good teams that took care of me. So the only reason why I reached this point, because truly I wasn't good enough or smart enough to make it on my own. I had to have those people doing this for me. So I know how to do that. It's just about doing what you're supposed to do for the pay that you're supposed to receive. Your paycheck is what you get for doing your job. A bonus is what you get for doing above and beyond your job. I'm like, are you kidding me? We're giving a bonus to I don't understand it. Well, Maz, we got to. No, we don't. He's done an adequate job at best.
I couldn't understand anything beyond what you just said as well. So very much preaching to the choir in this room, in this conversation. Before we kind of continue on professional, make a wedge here, because I kind of forgot to ask as a recap. And I think what you just said is also relevant to this kind of recap. Advice you'd give to your younger self, to other veterans listening, transition period, how to better overcome, how to simplify that process, how to adjust military to civilian.
Okay, the first thing is how you transition, the manner in which you transition out of the military. Whether it's 4 years or it's 34 years, as long as it's honorable service, it's an honorable transition. That's the way you've got to look at it. When you look at yourself in the mirror, it's not about did you make it to the highest rank. If I sat here and I complained about it, you'd be like, but you just said you were 0.78% of the people that make it to that thing, but you're complaining that you didn't make it to 2-star. That's why you're disgruntled. You didn't make it to the next level. If you served honorably, if you left it all on the field, then walk away with your head held held tall. That's one. 2, I felt very slimy going through the VA process. Before I went through the process, I felt like everyone was going to look at me like I was trying to get something, like a handout, that this is just what they're going to make me feel like. It was absolutely the opposite. Every doctor that I had to go see was absolutely in awe of our service, that we did this. They were asking you questions. You've got 215 pages in your medical record. I saw somebody yesterday with 1,200. We've got a lot of work to do because you've had some things done and you were taken care of, so it didn't go in your file, so you would continue to progress. Yes. That is your given right to be medically screened on your exit to make sure that everything is documented. And it's not just for pay, it's for future care and services. There's a lot of things you get 0% for. It means you're not getting paid for it. But it's documented so the VA will continue to take care of you on for those things. So get over that. You're not getting over on anything. Tell the truth, show them where it hurts, do what they ask you to do. That was one piece of the transition. Because of the deployments and the jobs I had an excessive amount of leave. Unfortunately, as a general officer transitioning out of the Army, there is very strict, because I can't take a lot of terminal leave. They need me off the books to promote someone. I have to be physically off the books for someone to get promoted. So I was able to sell a certain portion of we can only sell 30 days in the Army. So I sold 30 days back to the Army. They paid me for that. And then they gave me an extension, an exception to policy, and I took 60 days of terminal leave instead of the 30 that normally is granted. I still turned back in almost 100 days of leave, free, back to the service. If you don't mind, I'll transition. I'll skip back one piece of it.
Sure.
You're not the only one that needs leave. Your family needs you to take leave also, and I never really registered that. It wasn't about me because I never needed leave. I was enjoying what I was doing, and I was perfectly fine with a 4-day weekend, and I was ready to get started again. Your family needs you to take that leave and do things with them. So I'll bounce back to it now. I was going to take 60 days of leave. I was going to go on some incredible shooting trips and shooting some tournaments around the country. I'd lining a hunting trip up, some fishing trips up. My wife and I were going to go do stuff. It lasted 2 weeks. I couldn't do it. I'd never had more than 2 weeks tied together in a row, and it was block leave. And at the end of 2 weeks, you go back to work. So of course I'm refreshed and ready to go after 2 weeks. I called the president and I told him, I'm good, man. I just need to work. Maz, you don't need to work. I will pay you I'll start your pay now. Just take your leave. I said, not that. The money doesn't really matter at this point in time. I just can't do this.
Yeah.
Physically and mentally, I can't do this. He's like, come on in. So I started work. I tell everybody I talk to, whatever you can get for terminal leave, you take terminal leave, and that's all you do. You might think you're decompressed because your mind has been programmed to be decompressed within 2 weeks. But when it's all over, it's a lot longer than 2 weeks to completely decompress. Mm-hmm. That's one of the mistakes I made, was not going on those hunting trips, those fishing trips, those shooting excursions, and all that stuff. I will tell you, I probably still pay for it a little bit now, that I didn't do it. I would tell everybody, have a plan, stick to your plan. For 95% of the people that retire after 20 that are going to receive a pension and any amount of disability, you're going to be making more money than you made when you were on active duty. Money is not your problem. Your mental and physical health long-term is your problem. You need to transition properly to be set and ready for the next phase of your life, which hopefully still includes your family.
Very well said. I also, kind of taking what you were just saying there in terms of that decompression period. I always say it's like almost a forever journey, right? I mean, I don't think you should ever expect that it's going to end after 2 weeks, after 6 months, after 2 years. I mean, it's something that you'll likely have to deal with consistently, and it's not going to be easy either. I mean, you shouldn't sugarcoat that for yourself. It could be easy on certain days, could be harder on other days. Nonetheless, it's something that you got to work toward, work against, work for, really continuously. So yeah, very well said. That's awesome advice.
So I would say that the most helpful thing for me has been three things. Obviously, it's my family. I see them every day, and it's only I will not see them on my choosing now. I'll never be told I have to go and do anything again. Number one. Number two is my friend network. I talk to a guy that I serve with that actually went to the fellowship with me probably 3 times a week. We hunt twice a year together. And then I've got other guys like that it's just having a 30-minute conversation with somebody that you're completely relaxed with, not civilian kind of relaxed with, because that's a different conversation than what I have with these guys. It's a form of decompression. And then I'll tell you, probably the most important thing is I have tried very, very hard to stay in the same shape that I was in when I was on active duty. A little neurotic about it, actually. My wife fed up with the gym and the running and the everything else. But it's now ingrained in me that from a certain time period, I could wake up at 7 o'clock and go do it. And I mean, I can make my own hours in this job. I just have to accomplish what I need to accomplish. I am programmed now to wake up at 4:15. Sometimes it's a little earlier than that. Very seldom is it later than that. I get up. I do a little bit of reading, whether it's the early bird or the Army Times or something like that to stay fresh with what's going on. I go to the gym. I come home. I work my dogs. I get changed, have breakfast with the wife, and I go to work. That is my routine. If I don't have that routine, I am off. I make decisions about family trips and stuff like that to know that hotel doesn't have a gym, and if you look on Google Earth, there's no gym within the 15-mile radius, so I really don't want to stay there. But she knows it's my sanity.
Yeah.
So those are kind of the things that I've leaned on heavily after retiring, because nothing for me will ever replace my service. And the other thing about your next chapter, and a subordinate of mine by like 3 ranks that got out is the one that told me this. When I was just having some issues with, I need the authority to make this happen. I've got their intent. I can make this happen what the company wants, but I need the authority, and I don't need any oversight of telling me I'm being too hard on people. He goes, Mass, is this a career or a job? What do you mean? I mean, I'm getting paid to do it, so it really doesn't matter. And he said, no, there's a big difference. Is this a career where you want to progress to higher levels of responsibility and authority, that money is a driving factor? Or is this a job that you gain enjoyment out of doing it? It's fun money for you to do things that you've never been able to do. It's really not that stressful for you because it's probably lower than what you should be doing as you get out of the Army. Well, definitely the second, it's a job. He's like, then freaking relax about it. Do what they tell you to do. Do it to the best of your ability. You're not trying to get promoted. You're not trying to rise to be the vice president. Do what you have to do. That's easier said than done when you're used to being very effective and mission focused. And I have to remind myself that a couple times a week when I'm driving in. Mm-hmm. This is a job. You've had one of the most noble careers you could possibly have. You made it to a relatively successful level in the military. This is a job. It's okay. You're not going to achieve everything that you've said you want to try and accomplish.
Everything that you just said tracks. I think it's applicable to many, most, if not all, veterans. Yeah, very, very well said. And that's very good advice. So thank you for sharing that. And with that, where we left off, I think the last piece of where you're at now in your professional career, civilian side of things. What is your day-to-day like? What's your mission at this construction company that you're working at now?
So we'll start with what my mission is. And I said I was not, this was not a career. I wasn't looking for promotions and taking on more responsibility. I came in from, the agreement was no office, no hours. I had my task and purpose. I knew what I had to get done. As long as I was delivering on time and on target, we're good. I am now standing in front of my office with military paraphernalia behind me. And I've moved up 3 different times since I got here, taking on more responsibility. I've accepted more mentor time with that job. I've started my own company just because I needed a way for people that are reaching out to me to do things, to be paid for it. We also have to learn how to say no at certain points. We're not used to that. We've never been afforded the opportunity to say no. I really don't want to do that. So that's a challenge. I tell people, when I see them at shoots or on hunting trips and stuff, I'm working a lot more than I ever thought I would work in retirement. And, 9 out of 10 times the response is, damn, so am I. I thought I was going to have so much time that right. We just don't know how to say no. I will tell veterans also what we are very, very poor at, advocating for ourselves. I've taken on 3 positions of responsibility, now sitting like 3rd in the chain of command in this company. And I got to be honest with you, I don't have the balls to go to the president and tell him, hey, my pay hasn't changed. Because we've never advocated for ourselves. I don't know how to have a conversation about money. I mean, because when I performed, I got promoted. When I got promoted, I got a pay raise. I mean, it just normally happened. And again, it's that thing of overly self-conscious. Am I going to sound like a money-hungry, dork if I go in there and I say, hey, we really do need to talk about this, because I'm doing a lot more than we agreed to for the salary that we agreed upon. You better get good at it, because even if he's one of your best friends in the world, he's not going to come to you and tell you, I really should pay you more. It's just not how business works. That is coming out of the bottom line somewhere. So I would tell you now, as you get into that first job, write that resume, sell yourself, have the hard conversation about salary, and then stick to it.
Well said. So as a last piece to close out your civilian professional career, Let's hit some translatable skills. I mean, we've been talking about them throughout the conversation, so this would really be a recap, or if anything you want to add. So military to profession, that being built environment in particular, translatable skill sets.
Okay, so I will tell you this. I don't care what branch of service you're in. As long as you serve 3 to 5 years, you've got something that the civilian sector is craving. It's actually 2 things. Talked about it before: work ethic and leadership skills. I will tell you, those 2 things alone, written properly on a resume, will get you in the door of almost any company in the United States right now. They are craving for leadership. We came from the greatest leadership factory in the world, Department of Defense, military service. Nobody does it like we do it. We've been groomed to do it. It transitions from military to civilian at the drop of a dime. We just have to learn how to communicate those things better in the civilian sector. It's all the same exact thing. People that reach out to me all the time, I'm so scared about getting, dude, you don't understand how marketable you actually are. You've got to write a good resume, put some time into it, things that we're not really good at. We don't normally write in full sentences in the military. They're always bullet comments. Put some thought into it. Pay a couple $100 to have a professional then take it and rewrite it for you and market yourself, because you don't realize how marketable you actually are.
Well said. Absolutely agree, and that's really the thesis of this show, right? Is to market that fact in its entirety. Yeah. Awesome. So closing out the show, we'll finish with our last 2 questions/topics. We'll start with book or books that you'd like to recommend to the audience.
Got 2 books. Both of them I made mandatory my last 2 assignments in the Army, and I still talk about these when I do my senior mentorship stuff. One is called Peak Performance by Brad Stolberg. It was given to me by a Delta Force psychologist, and it talks about maintaining that mental and physical edge throughout a very difficult career. How do you stay on top for so long? Incredible book. I made everybody in my last 3 organizations read this book. As a matter of fact, my alma mater, Norwich, now carries it in their bookstore after I gave a leadership talk about it. Talks about stress plus rest equals growth, whether it be mental or physical. And how do you get that maximum performance out of yourself? I mean, I will tell you, one of the things in the book talks about standing desks, how long you work for a period of time before you take breaks. When does your subconscious really kick in, and where do your best ideas come from? It's your subconscious, not your conscious. That's why writers, musicians, they don't know when that next flurry of stuff's going to come from, and it's never sitting down behind their typewriter. It talks about how you rest in a dark room, at what temperature. It talks about keeping your phones off of your desk, because we have now been programmed that we need to look at our phone. We need to see who's on Facebook, or did they like our post. They talk about percentages of performance dropping, being inside the door of your office, being at a desk drawer, and being on your desk so that you can see them. Phenomenal book, recommended to everybody. Then the second one is Legacy by James Kerr. It talks about the All Blacks, the New Zealand, the Kiwi rugby team, and how they formulate the culture of that organization. So that is a self-governing culture. They hold each other accountable, and they're hard on each other. And over time, that became so engraved that it's just the way they do business. It's just how they live their lives for the All Blacks. Another great read. I could go on, Ghost Fleet and stuff like that. I never had a lot of time to just sit down and do a lot of reading. Again, not as smart as the rest of the team. I had to work a lot harder to be at the same place with them. So what I was reading was mostly work-related to be able to keep up with it. But when I did read, I wanted to be complete relaxation. So, fictional reading is good for the brain. And, they talk about it, peak performance. it is how you completely enter that subconscious. You're not reading to retain anything. You're reading just to see if the guy that's jumping out of the airplane actually lands on the ground without breaking his femur, or the guy who's doing whatever it is actually accomplishes his mission. And after you read it, who cares if you forget it? That's what actually resettles you. So I did a lot of fictional stuff. I mean, Jack Ryan and all those kind of books. But those two right there are probably two really good ones that I think anyone in any walk of life could benefit from.
I definitely am putting them on my list of reading. And to your point, and for the listeners, for whatever it's worth, in terms of time, having time, figuring out time to read, I just do audiobooks. It allows me to kind of forego a lot of excuses of, not having time to sit down and read, right? If you're driving, throw it on. You could walk, throw it on. You could do a lot of things and be listening. So that's my trick in terms of reading. Those books will be in the show notes. So I'm excited to dig into those two. Last question is wellness practice. I know you did actually touch on it in terms of routine, something that I, abide by, that I need also day to day. What does your wellness routine look like?
My normal duty day of how I go through my day and stay healthy. Mm-hmm. I mean, I get up in the morning relatively early. I always have. I try and get a little bit of reading in before I go to the gym. I have to maintain my level of lucidity with military doctrine because of the job that I do for the military. I also take a look at the Wall Street Journal just to see what's going on. It's actually, I've done a lot of political reading now too, being apolitical in the military, not really having a voice in anything. So I never really looked at it. I never studied it. I never saw what positions people were on. I can't talk about it, so I might as well just go about my business. It's very interesting to me now looking at it and listening to it. So I do a little bit of that. Then I go to the gym. I'm there for an hour and a half to 2 hours. Then I get back to the house. I normally shower, change, then grab the two dogs, take them to the pond across the street, and work them for about 30 minutes. That gives my wife a break, so they're not crazy all day while I'm gone. And I love doing it because I love watching the dog work. Get back. I have breakfast. Then I normally get on the road to get to work. I get here between 8:15 and 8:30. Probably about 15 to 30 minutes after most people do. But I remind the president all the time that, hey, when I first started this job, I had no hours, I had no office. You just expected results. So I think I'm putting a lot more hours in than I'm supposed to be. I normally bring my lunch with me, mainly because I belong to a hunting club that has 4,500 acres. That's about 7 minutes from the office. I normally go over there and eat lunch. I'll either sit on the dock that leads out to the lake that we're on, or I'll get my side-by-side and I'll go for a drive around the property, check my stands or check my cameras and stuff like that. If not, I would sit here all day long working. And that's the other thing about civilian life. There's no end to it. You're not finished for the day. It's where you decide you're going to stop and pick it up, because every day this company is bidding on 3 new projects. Every day we're closing 3, and I've got to run the post-construction AAR to figure out what we did right, what we did wrong, the pre-construction to make sure we're prepared to execute. So there's no end to it. So that's kind of my wellness thing. I normally leave here about 5:30. I'll either go to my hunting club and hunt for the evening, or I'll go home. And I will tell you, a lot of people, oh, that selfish guy, he's going hunting after he leaves work. I mean, after all these years. Let me tell you something. My wife and I are into a routine. If I stay in the house for both Saturday and Sunday, by Monday, she is so happy for me to go to work. This happened. I mean, I'll tell you, we had our problems. I can tell you that my wife was like, after the first 2 weeks when I was like having a really hard time with it, she was like, I don't mean this wrong, but you need to go on a hunting trip or a fishing trip or go do something, because you're driving us crazy. We've never had you around this long. So, I mean, that's kind of my routine.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Seems to work for both of us.
What I hear is a lot of healthy hobbies and habits, and a lot of outdoors. Both those things are, of course, going to be great for any individual.
Yeah, I mean, I probably have too many hobbies. I had too many hobbies when I was in the military, and so you don't ever really get to scratch the itch of having that hobby. Between, I love working on the Mustang. I love to hunt. I love to fish. I love to work out. I love working the dogs. I love my family dearly, so I want to do things with them too. My wife always says, "You are stressed about your time off and how you're going to allocate time to every one of your things. Do you ever just relax? Can you just relax?" That's a great question. I'll tell you that for a psychologist, not for this podcast. I've done something for so long in that environment where you're always on the go. Do we know how to relax and enjoy doing nothing?
Right.
Or is doing nothing stressful? Doing nothing for me is very stressful. I cannot sit down and just watch TV. I'm sit down for 5 minutes. I'll get up and go do something. I come back and sit down. My wife says I've got ADHD. I say I can't just rest, relax.
Yeah, I mean, I think all the
hobbies
you mentioned are great hobbies to have. So in my book, you're good to go.
I appreciate it. I will go see the
exactly. All right, Maz. This was really just an absolutely incredible life story, incredible military career, and what looks to be an incredible beginning to your civilian professional career. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your story and all of your insights. I'll close with saying thank you for being the celebrity that you are in my eyes. Don't care who's going to agree or disagree. You got celebrity status in my book.
Well, Adam, thank you very much, and thank you for reaching out to me. I will tell you that we find purpose in life in different ways. I will tell you my purpose, really, I find my purpose in kind of sharing the story. I talk to more people about how to transition and the pitfalls that I ran into and things please don't do than anything else. So I appreciate you reaching out to me. Again, you gave me purpose as we prepared for this thing. I hope it touches someone. Maybe someone will reach out to me and ask me for some advice.
Thanks so much. Thank you to all of our listeners, and we'll see y'all soon.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you to our channel sponsors, Jet.Build. If you're looking for ways to better manage your real estate development and construction projects, look no further. Jet is the command center software for end-to-end real estate development and construction management. That's www.jet.build.